Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Endeavour News. I'm your host, Hector, and I'm here with my co host, Gilbert.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
And we're also here with very special guest, Maurice from German Aid to Ukraine.
Hello, guys. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you on. I'll let Gilbert give you a more in depth introduction.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, so we're super glad to have Maurice from German Aid to Ukraine on the show with us. He's a very interesting guy, and manages this website where you can actually track all the military armament assistance that is going to Ukraine from Germany, and there's like a big sort of like timeline that you can check out, and it's really quite interesting, as you can probably see there on the screen that Hector's brought up. But yeah, Maurice, would you just actually, clearly you're a very interesting guy. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do here, but before we dive into the election results?
Yeah, sure. As you already said, I'm Maurice. I'm from Germany, as you can probably tell by my accent. Um, I'm doing this now since 2022. Because when this war started, I was thinking, okay, my government, of course, needs to act, and I was following the news very closely and also some social media accounts. I didn't have an own social media account particularly, and just observed from the outside. And over the first months, I was saw that a lot of news organizations and also like people on Facebook and Twitter and many more platforms leaving out a lot of news and a lot of details when it comes to the German assistance. And as you probably saw, I mean, rightfully, Germany was criticized a lot for their hesitant behavior early on.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of the criticism was actually like unbased. And yeah, at I believe around September, I just decided to start this little project, basically keeping track of everything Germany does for Ukraine. And yeah, here I am.
Wonderful. Okay, that's really good. What was some of the like criticisms? I guess that I'm just curious as to why the German government wasn't doing enough. You said, were there any criticisms that you can think of off the top of your head that I'm just curious what that, because it seems like may have wasn't just Germany, but it seems like everybody's kind of dropped the ball on this one, which actually kind of, I think a lot of people have been questioning, how, you know, what even is NATO at this point. But did you have any comments that you wanted to say about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, to be honest, compared to other countries like Poland, for example, which did phenomenal in the very few months or the first months of the war, Germany didn't really do a lot. Like compared to them, we still changed our complete behavior. I mean, in the beginning of the war, we had the issue that Germany wasn't ready, without very, very few exceptions, to send actual arms to war zones,
Mm.
to active war zones.
Mm,
That's the main issue like compared to Great Britain or the US, which doesn't have these regulations, and we had to get rid of them first. And a lot of people, for example, were complaining, yeah, Germany started with 5,000 helmets, for example, which is
Yeah,
which
that's
is
sort of what
just
New Zealand said, but it's like, come on, we're New Zealand.
yeah. I mean, what would be nice if you just send something, right? You're so isolated from the rest of the world, you could just basically do nothing.
Oh
Um,
yeah, and
mm.
well, I mean, this is a different topic, but the New Zealand's military is like the least modern military in the Western world, so we don't really have much to send. So
We got like a truck
True.
last year, and that was like a big thing.
yeah,
It's
it was
like,
like
yeah,
a
we
big
got a truck.
defense. The big defense spending in New Zealand was buying like a bunch of new trucks, and that was it. Like
and,
that's actually
and
what the
Yeah.
and
news
at the
articles were
same
saying.
and at the same time, that woman crashed that massive battle
Oh yeah,
cruiser into the rocks. So,
yeah. Then we lost this like battleship because because the captain sunk it, and then we bought new trucks. So that's the state of the New Zealand military. So we don't really have much to send, to be fair. But anyways, let's get back on topic.
Yeah. So what were you saying?
Yeah.
Sorry, Maurice, we cut you off.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, no worries. I mean, to be fair, like, isn't New Zealand like very big with what's your people called, the Maori?
Yeah. The Maori
Yeah,
people.
to be honest, I saw a few like meet and greets of them, like when they're meeting like long distance people or so, and they are traditional dance they're doing,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I see that from an outside perspective. You probably know it much better than me. But to be honest, when I would encounter something like this with firearms, with stones, or with sticks, I don't know, it wouldn't make a difference. Alone, the tone is pretty scary.
So we should send
Yeah.
Maori as a military aid. So is that the new plan for New Zealand?
Yeah, that's something to consider. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
that'll work.
Um,
That's cool.
yeah. But apart from that, no, going back to the thing with the 5,000 helmets, I mean, that's just half true, right? Like, it's true, Germany in the very beginning sent 5,000 helmets. But the thing is that a lot of people left that out. That these 5,000 helmets were actually agreed on prior to the beginning of the full scale invasion.
Hmm.
The first thing we did after the full scale invasion was sending manpads and anti tank weapons. And kind of these things, it's like kind of true but not the full truth to that, and that's why I'm doing this project.
Okay. Right. Yeah, and transparency. Yeah, I mean that's why a lot of people just, they don't know where to look, or they don't feel kind of secure, is because, yeah, these details that are actually important are completely being missed out from the media. So yeah, that's great that there are people like you to shed light on this stuff for people to check out. So okay, awesome. So that's Maurice, everybody, and yeah, we're happy to have him here with us. Hector, should we dive into the election results? Do you want to take us through that?
Yeah. So, sorry about that. I just had to clear my throat a bit. But anyways, I'm sure as you know, because everyone was talking about it, it was world news. Germany had an early election. Their previous government fell apart. That was composed of the Social Democrat, is that right? Social Democrat Party, the Green Party, and the what is it? Free Democratic Party, which is like a libertarian party. They had this three-party coalition that collapsed because the coalition partners couldn't agree on, I believe, stuff like raising the debt limit in Germany, if that's correct. So there was an early snap election called. The election pretty much it followed exactly what the polls were saying. If you were following the polls before the election, the SDP and its coalition partners got sort of like absolutely decimated, while the Christian Democrat Union, the AFD, and even the left wing party seemed to,
Elinka,
yeah,
I
De
think.
Linke went up in the polls. It seems very likely that, I mean, it's actually, Frederick Metz, I believe that's how you say his name, is going to be the next Chancellor of New Zealand. He's probably going to go in a coalition with the Social Democrat Party because he ruled out going into a coalition with the Alternative for Deutschland Party. It's interesting. It's interesting, but at the same time, it's sort of what was expected. And I guess it would be good to go into just the lead up to the election, the actual results, and what this means for Germany in the future, and Europe, and especially Ukraine going forward.
Hmm.
So, how was it on the ground? How was it on the ground in the lead up to the election? The entire world was watching because, yeah, very important election. So, what was it like on the ground with this sort of election going? Were people mad with the current government? Was people excited for the new change of government? What's been going on in Germany in the lead up?
So I think you already explained the basic situation very good. Besides one thing, I would be surprised if Friedrich Merz would be the Chancellor of New Zealand. But
Oh, did I say New Zealand?
yeah,
I meant Germany. Yeah,
That's good. Yeah.
it's Chancellor of Germany. That would have been
yeah.
interesting.
Nah, just kidding, just
Yeah,
kidding. It was funny. I know how you meant
yeah.
it. Um, no, but it was exactly like you displayed it. I mean, it was pretty much expected, the outcome.
Hmm.
Even the like around 20% for the AfD was kind of expected. The only thing which wasn't that expected was the result from the Linke, like a
Mm.
few months before the election or prior to the election. they actually had trouble getting even in the parliament, which
Yes.
means in Germany you have to cross the 5% hurdle
I
to
believe
actually
there were
come
some
into the.
state elections where they did quite badly in like East Germany, where had like strongholds before, and their party results were decimated. I believe in the what was the election in Germany last year? There was a
Uh, don't ask me. To be honest, we have so many
yeah.
elections,
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
16 federal states, no, but I do remember something where they had like horrible election results, and
Mm.
they just due to direct mandates came into the parliament.
It was the EU
Yeah, I
elections?
think they
Is that
did
what
bad
you?
on the EU elections, but there was also a state election. It might have been Saxony. I'm not too sure.
Okay, okay.
Thuringia,
Well,
is that
Yeah,
the name of the state?
Thüringen, Thuringia, yeah,
Yeah, I think it was
hmm,
actually that. Oh
yeah.
yeah, Thuringia. There was a
hmm.
Thuringia state election, and the left party, which either came like first or second last time, came like fifth. So they were going.
Oh,
There was a real
what a
downturn for
shellacking.
them. Yeah. But-
Mm, mm.
Well, anyways, so yeah, so that's the results. What do you think of the future? Like, there's been some rhetoric coming from Mr. Mertz. Uh, how do you expect this government formation process to go?
Mhm,
Well, it's currently ongoing. The talks to form a new coalition started a couple of days ago, which is very good. We don't have to, waste any time. Um, we will have fundamental issues on certain topics. For example, migration is a huge
mm.
problem
Right.
and a huge topic. I think it was even the like the biggest topic, or the people most people were concerned with migration. I believe I saw something in the polls like 44% of
Yeah,
all
that's
people
that's
surveyed
really
were
high.
like,
Mm.
yeah, and it's kind of surprising to me that for most of the center parties, like so the SPD, the Greens, and so on, that they actually surprised every election by that. I mean, it's every election is migration one of the top topics, and every election they're getting surprised that it is one of the top topics.
Yeah.
Um,
Surprised again.
yeah,
Yes. Well, yeah, that's an
kind of.
interesting. Mm.
Yeah, kind of also the issue I see. I mean, I live in Eastern Germany, so I can actually
Oh,
speak about it.
okay.
See that as one of the problems we have in Eastern Germany regarding the rise of the AfD. I mean, when you see when the AfD started in 2013, 14, 15, something like this. I mean, this was the beginning of the migration crisis here in Germany. And
Yes.
when Merkel took in like over 1 million of refugees very
Ooh.
fast from
I mean,
Afghanistan, Syria, and all.
it's easy to see how the
And
AfD can rise when the when the parties in power are doing stuff like that, just like ridiculous policies with migration.
Mm. Merkel's
I
kind of
mean,
their best gift to the AfD in that in a strange sort of way. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, no,
Yeah.
you're not wrong. I mean, that was the beginning, right? The problem is they have risen, is I believe the correct word in English, right? They have risen
Yes.
from
Mhm.
just a couple of percent to 10%, and now they have doubled
20.
their
Yeah.
yeah, they've doubled their election result. And I mean, every fifth voter is voting for them. You have to imagine that, right? And in my Eastern German opinion, unless, I mean, there are other problems, right? It's not only migration, of course, but the main issue for the people living in the East is, in my opinion, migration. And
Yeah.
unless nobody does something against it, I'm not saying deport all people. That's completely stupid. I mean, there are tens of thousands of people working in like high critical jobs, for example, in the medical sector, from Afghanistan, from Syria, and all that kind of stuff. You can't deport these people. They're so crucial. But there are so many. I don't want to get into the specifics too much. But there are so many like people who are just here and living off the country, living off the
Yeah.
government, and doing crimes and all that kind of stuff. I don't see any reason why they should be allowed here in Germany. And when you look at the what happened here in Germany, I don't know how it was in the news in New Zealand or in other parts of the world, but prior to the election in Germany, um, this started last year. In November, I believe we had one terrorist attack in November. We had one in December, actually in my hometown. We had, I believe,
Really? Wow.
two. We had two in January and one in February, or two in February. One just days before the election in Munich, somebody from, I believe, Syria or Afghanistan stole a car and drove into a crowd. And stuff like this was over the news for the past
Yeah.
months prior to the election. So I'm actually surprised that the AfD only doubled their thing, because the only ones who really want to do something, at least they're very vocal about it, is the CDU CSU. The SPD claims to do something, but in my personal opinion, this is more like a stunt doing something. And so yeah, I think migration will be the biggest issue for the formation of the coalition, because SPD and the CDU have fundamentally different opinions on this topic.
Do you think, just to add in there, because immigration is obviously a huge issue. We saw with Denmark, immigration was a huge issue there. You had the rise of, the populist right party there. But then, the actual parties in government actually put in some policies to address the issue. And then, the support for these parties went down, these populist right parties, because the government was actually doing something. Do you think that the government, like an SPD, CDU government, could actually put in some policies, maybe a bit similar to what they're doing in Denmark? Make it a bit harder for people to get, refugee status and be able to stay in the country without working, that sort of thing? Or do you see that as sort of just like a lost cause, and they're just going to try to sweep it under the rug and hope it fixes itself?
I don't think they will sweep anything under the rug. Migration is in my opinion, the main topic of the CDU CSU
Hmm.
prior to the election and right now. So I don't think they will do any like sweeping under the carpet.
Hmm.
Funny enough, Denmark is actually used as a prime example by Merz over and over again.
Yeah. Well, that's
So
fair enough. I mean,
Oh
they're
wow.
actually getting results there, so it makes sense.
yeah, he is using them as an example as often as possible, as I've seen it, at least prior to the election, in these like TV debates where they have all the candidates and all that kind of stuff. He mentioned Denmark a lot.
Mm.
And so yeah, I don't think I think what people are doing right now is like overestimate the actual outcome of these talks and what he can actually achieve.
Mm.
But in my opinion, at least I hope that he will do much more. And I don't think he will sweep anything under the carpet. No.
All right, well, let's hope
Yeah,
that's
I'm.
true. Yeah, let's hope for Germany
Mm,
that's true, and that the situation in the country can actually improve.
I believe in. So it says here in December 2024, Merz called for deportations of illegal Syrian immigrants to Syria and a freeze on new admissions of refugees. As chancellor, he aims to regularly deport people to Afghanistan and Syria. And there's actually a lot more on that, where yeah, he does seem to notice. Yeah, he advocated for denaturalization, so that's actually the loss of citizenship, even against the will of the person concerned, and it also even applies to ethnic minorities and political dissidents, and it can even denaturalization can be a penalty for actions considered criminal against the state. So he's put that in the mix, and there's actually a lot of stuff in Merritt's. Um, yeah, he sees limiting irregular migration as the most important task after the 2025 German federal election, and he was actually in the party with Angela Merkel, I believe, and he viewed Angela Merkel's policy of open borders during the 2015 European migrant crisis to be fatal.
I think a lot of people consider that fatal. Like
Yeah,
that was a terrible policy.
yeah. So he called for asylum seekers to be comprehensively rejected directly at the border. He believed that would send a signal that would lead to less irregular migration, as he put it. And
I mean, it would. That's the thing. It actually would, though. It's pretty sound logic. It's simple logic too.
yeah, he yeah. So he did say that. Oh no, sorry. This was someone else actually who said this. But yeah,
Do
so
you have that
someone was
article?
saying,
I don't have that. Can you put that in the Jitsi chat?
sure, okay. Yeah, it's I'll just finish reading it, but
Hmm.
yeah, he was saying that this is a statement by Minister President Michael Kretschmer. He spoke out in favor of accepting 60,000 to 100,000 refugees per year, and Merz explained that Kretschmer's statement describes what we can achieve today with our integration power. But I don't know if that's really the thrust. I think they need to, yeah, seriously get these, the border sorted and the migration underway. So, but I guess, Maurice. So, what is your? Can you tell us what do you think about Friedrich Merz? Do you think what do
Is
you
it
think about
Mers
him
or
again?
Mertz? Because I feel like we're putting a
Merz.
T in
Is it
there.
Merz.
Oh,
Merz.
okay, yeah,
Metz?
Mertz.
Metz. Okay,
Merz.
Metz.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So yeah, what do you think about Mr. Metz?
First of all, Friedrich Merz vanished from the surface under Merkel.
Mm,
Just want to highlight that. I mean, he is now how old? 60, 70, something like this, right? He
yeah.
never governed anything anywhere. He has no experience at all, kind of like when Trump took office for the first time. It will be very interesting. The thing I have the most, I mean, he has some good opinions or some good like takes, I would say. I'm very much in favor of helping Ukraine much more, both political and with humanitarian and military support. He's not opposing a delivery of Taurus, for example. I mean, it's not a Wunderwaffe, but it would be an enhancement of Ukraine's capabilities,
Mm,
which is very much needed. I think that's very good. I think he has some good, yeah, you could say fundamentals or some good views on like migration policy.
mhm,
The thing is, with him, he is. I don't want to say he's kind of like Trump because he isn't, but he's saying very, very good things, or he's saying a
mhm.
lot. But what comes out of it is very much limited, right? I mean, just to give you an example, on Monday he would say he likes apples. On Tuesday he says he likes oranges, and on Friday he says he doesn't like food at all. Right?
Yeah.
It
So
it's
just
always a
basically how
gamble.
politicians always act, right? Like that's what the
Yeah.
Yeah, but him even more so. I think he's saying he's
right.
more like a Trump in his unpredictability. Would that be correct? Even more than other politicians? Is that right, Maurice?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't say he is unpredictable. I would just say that his statements are already always very vague. I mean,
Mm,
just let's use a real life example, right? Taurus, for example. At some point, he criticizes Scholz a lot for not supplying Taurus to Ukraine, which I can understand and fully support. Um, at other sites or at other instances, he says he would definitely do it himself. Then he says, when asked, I believe that was in November 2024, he was asked, after the coalition broke up, yeah, would you do it? And he would say, yeah, I mean, I would at least start the training of Ukrainian soldiers. But I would definitely not consulate, a talk with Great Britain and France, so with Starmer and Macron, and get their opinions since they have already supplied their own cruise missiles. And then he says it's very much important, and Ukraine needs cruise missiles. It doesn't have to be Taurus. He's going back and forth with his statements, always saying something different. It's kind of
mhm.
the same meaning, but you never know with him, and that's his biggest issue apart from not having any experience at all.
Okay, yeah, because yeah, I had a image of like a sort of like a Trump-like figure. Like apparently he's like 2 meters tall, and he's
Yeah, he
actually
is big.
Yeah, he's huge. Yeah, he's
yeah.
like
He's big.
What the heck? Yeah, I can sort of think that it probably is a good pick. I'm guessing at least in relations to the Trump administration in America to have someone like for like of the same sort of stature who won't get alphaed, I guess. But in these negotiations, so yeah, that's quite interesting. Then, okay, would you do you think this is like maybe I'll ask you. I'll ask you now. So are you? happy with the results, um, or
No.
how do you feel about the results?
I'm not happy at all.
Oh God! Oh no!
The
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I'm living somewhere in the blue region, right? It's
Yeah.
I can't.
The blue
Nobody can be
wall.
happy with that. Yeah,
The blue
I
wall.
mean, the only thing people can say positive about it, we didn't had big surprises. I mean, the only thing people actually keep an eye on, at least the most people, were like if certain parties come into the parliament or not. I
Yeah,
mean,
like
we have seen this, the FD, yeah, the BSW, with
they
I
just
believe,
missed out as well. They were like a couple thousand votes away from getting in.
yeah, I'm kind of surprised that actually it's 5.0% on this, because then they would
Yeah,
be in the
I
parliament.
think that's rounded up. I think it was like 4.97.
97,
Yeah,
yeah.
really
Yeah.
close.
So that was the only thing with the BSV and the FTP, if there were like people very, very much or looked at it closely. Apart from that, like no big surprises. I'm not happy about it. I voted green, so Die Grüne.
Oh, Die Grüne.
And yeah, it's, my biggest point normally before the begin of the full-scale invasion was like very much digitalization of Germany, and climatic change and all that kind of stuff. That was my main topics basically. And right now, I mean, it wouldn't change anything because it still would be the Greens, but right now it's Ukraine 100%. And in my opinion, from the parties available, which actually made it to the parliament, the Greens were the ones you had to go when you want to support Ukraine the most, in my opinion.
Really?
Oh, okay.
And so yeah, I'm not happy with that. They lost out on a lot of votes, although you have to admit, from the governing parties who are
Yeah, they
currently
did the
governing this
best. Yeah,
country, they did the best by a lot. I mean, the SPD lost a lot. The FDP didn't even achieve to get into the parliament the next 4 years. So yeah, they did great. And a couple of months ago, like late 2024, they were at something like 9 point blah 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 percent. So they actually improved compared to a couple of months prior. And yeah, apart from that, I'm kind of happy. The blocking minority is just the thing where I really kind of have issues with coping. But yeah, apart from that, it's fine.
Okay.
so
So
oh, sorry.
yeah, go ahead. You go, Hector. That's all right.
So I guess just when you look at the swing from 2021 to 2025, obviously the SPD got trounced. I mean, yeah, all the coalition partners, the FDP is not even in parliament. Just look at it. Look, it went from like that to that. It's pretty crazy.
Oh shit.
Massive swing. Do you like? I guess depending on how this coalition goes, I mean, you've got the list here of the potential grand coalitions. You got SDP, Greens, which would be a minority government. I mean, they probably don't really need the Greens involved. But do you see the coalition, like how are the coalition talks going? Because we haven't actually heard much news about that outside of in the international news yet, even though it is obviously a big part of the election process. So do you think that these coalitions will last? Because the last one didn't. That fell apart, and all the parties lost a massive amount of support, except the Greens. Do you expect this next government to be stable if it is an SDP CDU government, or do you think it'll only last maybe 3 years and then there'll be another swing in the other direction or something?
So the big difference with the probably or very likely next government coalition is that it was a three-party coalition, right? I
Hmm.
mean, it's three parties on certain topics that have on certain topics completely fundamental different opinions, and that was kind of the issue. You always had issues and fights going on. A lot of that was made public by the FDP, confirmed by the way. So they kind of, deserved their
Yeah,
really, really
lost over
bad
half their
results.
support and not even in parliament
Yeah.
anymore. So
And I think that was a big issue also with the SPD, because Scholz, I think, would be a great chancellor for peace times. Basically, it would be a great chancellor during times when Merkel, in my opinion, was chancellor. He is not built for the high pressure and constant pressure, basically, in my opinion, where you need a strong leadership, and he didn't have it. He's like very relaxed and taking into account every option, very talking quiet, not showing a lot of emotions, which is kind of based where he comes from, right? Like
Mm.
Hamburg, this area. I mean, these people are very reserved, and
Oh,
keep it to themselves. But in my opinion, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean a lack of leadership, but it displays a lack of leadership to a lot of people who would have liked to seen a much stronger grip on the leading parties. And I think that was the biggest issue with the SPD, to be honest. From the coalition formation right now, it's ongoing for just a few days. I mean, the
Yeah, it's only just started,
election
right?
was,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
it only just
Mhm.
started. And to be honest, also in Germany, we haven't heard a lot about it in the news, which is very good news, because then
Yeah.
people actually keep it to themselves, kind of be happy with what's going on behind closed doors. I think that's a very good sign. I don't think we will see anything different besides it's called Grand Coalition right there. I
Yeah.
mean, Groß Coalition in the basic term, isn't it? Because that would be the first and second strongest parties, and the second strongest party isn't the SPD. But
Yeah, true, true.
yeah, but apart from that, I think there won't be any other outcome, because getting a third party involved, the Greens, I mean, there wouldn't be in any other option, to be honest. And I think getting them involved, I would love to see it. The big problem is when you have three parties again, we have very fundamental, different opinions on certain topics, especially on migration again. The Greens and the CDU, CSU, the Union is something completely different, and that would just create issues within the government. So I think it will be down to the CDU CSU, which started the coalition talks, and yeah, something else wouldn't make any sense, to be honest.
Yeah, I reckon that's pretty solid. Like after, after this election, it's like the SPD and the Greens, I think, and the CDU as well, actually. I think that they both kind of have to look at the meteoric rise of the AFD and go, okay, maybe we need to walk things back a little bit, and maybe we need to, come at things from a less aggressive angle with a lot of the other stuff that we advocate, because I think it's pretty clear to me that Germans were, I mean, the main thrust of a lot of these things was the mass migration and borders, and it was the economy. Apparently, a lot of
Yeah.
Germans are hurting bad,
Economic
and
issues in Germany are, from what I hear, somewhat bad.
yeah, yeah, and of course it was another. It was, of course, Ukraine, and many Europeans are, that they know what the Russians are
Yeah,
like,
rightfully
and they see.
concerned, especially when half of Europe was occupied by Russia at one point. So it makes sense.
Of course.
And half of Germany, so it makes sense that people are worried about Russia in Europe.
Yeah, yeah, and they can't even produce like this Russia the same with all that land. The amount of wealth they produce is like comparable to South Korea or something. But anyway, yeah. So it's like quite a terrifying thought. So that's like the big three, really, to the most fundamental things to a civilization: borders, economy, and
And
defense
they're all
and
sort of
security.
related. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, what do you know? And of course, we know that Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin, they actually, uh, aid and abet this and
mass migration.
exacerbate the
Yeah,
mass mig. Yeah,
and
that's
the
right.
economic issues too. To be fair, yeah.
And the economic issues too. Like with the, I tend to take, there was something there with the Russian involvement with the Nord Stream pipeline, with the spy ship, Russian spy ship that was there 2 weeks prior to it exploding. And of course we know that Biden is has his links, through Arm and Hammer. But I mean, yeah, the mass migration. I just want to comment, like the through Belarus, like the reason why the Polish border is so bulked up and hefty. Because Belarus, they're helping funneling these migrants through Belarus into Poland, and they're trying to squelch Poland with all these illegal migrants from
Yeah, like
everywhere
Iraq,
basically.
Syria are all over the place.
India, yeah, it's like yeah, it's pretty crazy. So yeah, that's like the big three. So I think given that, I mean, this is just kind of like a watershed or red letter day really, or watershed moment, and we shall see that if they do. The thing is, excuse me, if they do yeah, retract, take a few steps back. That is the Linke Green, SPD Greens, and even the CDU. It'll be very interesting. I would guess that they have to walk it back, but then again, and I want to get you in there in this, Maurice, that will launch into another discussion. Is because this will be related. Is I want to get your thought on the presence of Elon Musk with
Oh,
the
yes.
AFD
Oh,
and
Jesus.
yeah, that's okay. I think we're hitting on all the right bars here then. Yeah, and maybe you can actually while we're on the subject, maybe you can talk a little bit about what you think about the AFD and their meteoric rise, and or it's go on us because we've kind of indicated why that was. But if you want to add anything on there, feel free. But yeah, also Alice Weedle and Elon Musk and his presence there. So yeah, just curious about your thoughts there.
Yeah, so Elon Musk is yeah, I don't even know how to how to explain it, to be honest,
It's
without
pretty odd. It's
going
pretty
too
odd, eh?
nuts.
You haven't seen
Yeah.
stuff like that before, I
Um,
bet.
yeah, I
Mm,
think my initial reaction captured my thoughts on that very well. Yeah, he's doing his fair share for them. I, to be honest, don't know if it had much influence on the election. I mean, the 20% was kind
Yeah.
of expected. They got around that 20%. In Germany, to be honest, like X, so his social network isn't very much used by so many Germans.
Hmm.
I
mhm.
think you would
Probably why
have
we're having a
reached
hard
more.
time finding them. To
Yeah,
have
I
interviews
tried
with German
so
people.
hard, man. I tried. I'm so glad I found you, Maurice, and that you're more than willing to join us because I tried contacting this other German guy and he was just playing tough strudel, man. Like I just it was tough.
Do you mind sharing who?
There's this. I follow this guy from a website called Candor Intelligence. His name is Alexander Benish, and I tried to get him to join us. He does a show with J.R. Nyquist, basically on Russian influence operations on on the world and going back through that history. And he's a
Mm.
super smart guy, and we've had Jeff Nyquist on before with David Satter and yeah, candorintel.com. It's really, I highly recommend everybody check it out. It's really great deep dives. But I tried to get him on, but yeah, he's hard to get on. But yeah, but yeah, I mean, having Maurice here is more than enough. So that's great. But
Second
but
best choice.
yeah, no, not at all, not at all, not
Yeah,
at
yeah, I get
all.
it. It's fine.
No, no, I didn't mean to. But yeah, it's
I know. I'm just kidding.
but yeah, please, Maurice, tell us. Yeah, the presence of Elon Musk and even Alice Weedle is quite a strange occurrence with her Sri Lankan uh, paramour, I suppose, and her, the fact that she's,
She doesn't
I
even live
guess,
in Germany, right? She lives in Switzerland.
Yeah, she's kind of the opposite what you would expect from the leader of the AfD. I mean, lesbian, having
yeah,
a foreign nation wife,
hmm
and not even living in Germany is, or mostly living in Germany. I mean, I believe she has a house somewhere on the border, but she isn't living there. She actually lost her election district
Oh, really?
yeah,
in Germany. Yeah, yeah. I don't know, to be honest. It's like Jesus. Now I want to have a good comparison. Um,
hmm
Jesus Christ, yeah, I can't.
like
Okay,
a
yeah, but
Clinton
it's
or
kind of weird to
oh no,
have her around, right? And with
mm,
the AfD itself, I mean, in my personal opinion, like I said, I live in Eastern Germany, so I have a lot of, or I have more to do with them than other people from the
Yeah.
parts of Germany. And in my opinion, the biggest issue people have, the CDU were the first ones to actually see this from, my perspective, is that not all of their ideas are bad. The things they say that are bad, um, the things how they are saying it is bad. Like mass deportations and securing all the borders. They don't know. They don't have any clues how to actually implement the stuff they're cheering for. That's a big issue. But the thing is, when you want to work on migration, there's no way around the AfD because they will vote for you. And a lot of parties, you have seen this with the SPD and with the Greens, and of course other parties in the parliament, is that they have like made a lot of um, bad vocals towards the CDU CSU because they were saying, okay, when the AfD is voting for our motion in the Bundestag, it is like it is. We're not working with them, but we're not saying, or we're not getting rid of our opinions just because someone else is also for it. And I think that's a big issue a lot of parties have in Germany, that when the AfD thinks the same or has the same opinion, a lot of people say, oh, then we're doing something wrong and we need to make the opposite. And that's also an issue I, for example, as an Eastern German, see sometimes in real life when I'm, for example, in Western Germany or something, or I talk to people from Western Germany. Even that's enough. And we talk about migration. A lot of the stuff I'm saying is, be- I'm very much in favor of like not closed borders. And like I said in the beginning, there are tens of thousands of people from Africa or from African countries, which are super crucial for our economy and for our medical sector and all that kind of stuff. But I'm very much in favor of having much more stricter rules.
Hmm.
And a lot of the stuff I'm saying is not seen very positively in Western Germany. And I've seen this in the from friends living, or people I know living in Western Germany, that's saying, yeah, that's the AfD talking out of you. I'm like, no, it's they just have kind of the same opinion. And I think that's the main issue with like a lot of central parties, that they are saying, okay, as soon as the AfD, especially on migration, has the same opinion, we're doing something right, we need to make something, or we need to do the opposite, basically.
I
Mm,
know that just
mm.
sounds sort of childish. It's like you can have a sensible
It
policy of
is.
migration
It
without going, oh,
is.
the AfD
Yeah.
said something, so that means it's bad. It just seems a bit silly.
Yeah, I mean, I question really how quote unquote far right the AfD actually really is after putting
They
out.
are.
They
They
are.
are.
Okay,
They
fair
Oh,
enough.
they
oh, okay, okay. No, but isn't there like, aren't
they're
they? Uh-huh. Go ahead.
yeah. No, go, no, please. First.
Oh no, I just thought like, well, is it really like I heard in the 90s that they had to walk back a lot of what they said. I believe that was when they uh formed, but they originally had
The
to
AfD. They didn't form in the 90s. They formed in like the 2012, didn't they?
oh, okay. Oh, sorry to just okay. Maybe yeah, I think they had to like walk back some policies or something because they were perceived as too far right. They are still too far right, but they had to include like a libertarian sort of liberal element to what they were doing to make it seem like they weren't like this kind of way. And you had Alice Weedle talking about Hitler is like a communist, and
Just
therefore like the Greens and the Linke and all the left are like communists too. So you're actually more like
speaking of like
Hitler. But
childish, that's just like stupid.
Yeah, it's
yeah, I do kind of actually see what she's saying there, um, because it is sort of a precursor to yeah. Anyway, that's another road. But yeah, but I thought it was very funny to call like I thought it was hilarious. But anyway, so I mean yeah, no, so why in that case so they are far right. So why is that? Because I'm a bit um yeah confused about that.
yeah. So the whole party is, as far as I know, the local not districts, but the parties of the federal states. The whole party is, getting monitored by the German domestic intelligence services. Several youth
Yes.
organizations of them were banned in Germany because of extremist attitudes. They're really far right. I mean, they have some people which are just, want to do something better for Germany, or a lot of these voters are just completely fed up with the politics of the central parties.
Mhm.
So they're voting. In Germany, we call that Protestwählen. So basically, you're just going to vote for this party to protest against the current government. And yeah, they're very far right. There's no doubt about that. They're like less right people or far right people within the party and more far right. Of course, there are like differences. But overall, you can say that the whole party is far right, and it wouldn't look good if this party ever is going to govern Germany.
Well, but
Yeah.
if you keep ignoring, because I mean, you can't just dismiss 20% of the vote as a protest vote, right? And I guess if the next
Yeah.
government doesn't deliver, you're going to have a Germany and an AfD that's in the position of, the Freedom Party in Austria, where they don't just come second, they come first. Like, you're sort of looking at that trajectory. If the CDU continues to ignoring, 44% of the people that consider migration to be the biggest concern of the country, you'll end up with the AfD coming first, not just second. So I think, yeah, the CDU and the SPD really have to do something.
Give it a nod.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I've said, right? Like when they are keep ignoring all these problems, and you're definitely right. You can't ignore every fifth voter and saying he's just protesting. That's definitely not true. Um, but it's the biggest, in my opinion, it's the biggest issue. First of all, the economical situation. Although I have to admit, or one has to point out that in a lot of not surveillance, in a lot of surveys and polls before and after the election, the majority of people, 60, 70, 80% from poll to poll, are saying they're in a completely fine situation. Right? I mean, of course, I'm have to admit, of course, stuff is getting more and more expensive and all that kind of thing. I mean, Germany is an export nation. We were like flooded by very cheap energy sources from Russia, and that has to go somewhere, right? When that's missing and when Germany is not exporting much. I mean, of course, that has an influence on our economy. But the thing is, most of the people are saying they personally are feeling completely fine, but they think that a lot of other people are not doing fine,
Right.
besides the majority doing actually fine, right? And the problem is for the government itself or for the country itself, we are kind of in a very vague and critical situation from an economical standpoint. But the thing is, we are still the third largest economy in the world. Nothing has changed. It's compared to other countries, we're doing currently much, much uh, worse, but we're still the third largest economy. And it's, I think a lot of people say that we are in a much more worse situation than we actually are. We're in a
Okay.
serious situation, but nothing which can't be solved, to be honest. And yeah.
I'll just bring up this chart. This is energy prices in Germany, apparently. But it looks like, I mean, the energy prices are up a bit since, 2021, but it looks like they've mostly stabilized since, 2020, 2023. So,
Yeah. I mean, you have to imagine Germany when the new government took office, right, in 2021.
mm,
They were during COVID. Then COVID ended, and just a few months after this emergency situation of COVID, I mean, if I recall correctly, not the Netherlands, New Zealand was like very much isolated and completely shut down, right?
Oh
yeah,
God, yes.
definitely.
Together with Australia. Yeah, I've seen that with my mother. She's a great tennis fan, and I was like, yeah, no, they completely shut down again. No tennis match.
Oh no.
And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and so here in Germany, there already was an economical difficult situation. I mean, because during COVID and just months after this emergency time from COVID ended, a nuclear country or a country with the most nuclear weapons in the world attacked another country
Yes.
within Europe. I mean, you have to imagine from Berlin
Mm,
to Kiev or to Lviv, more specific, it's about 2 hours by flight. 2 hours by
Mm,
flight. And
mm,
this is happening right next to us. There are ballistic missiles stationed in Russia, in Kaliningrad, which can strike German soil right now. I mean, they can, of course, strike with atomic bombs. Yeah, right. But this is very close to us, and we were so dependent on Russian energy sources, on oil and gas, especially. Um, of course, that has an impact on energy prices, on food prices, on basically everything. I mean, I would be surprised if not, but the government did a lot to get rid of it and to stabilize the situation. I can say, for example, that the Netherlands and Norway in particular were very important for Germany in terms of energy sources, and without them, we wouldn't have get it done. And you see it at the chart, right? In 2024, there were situations where the energy prices were lower before the
Mm.
war, right? And people are still, yeah. I mean, I'm right now paying less for energy than I did before 2020,
Oh
Oh,
wow.
that's good.
right?
Okay.
And
Good.
yeah,
And
it went up, it went up, it went up, and then it went significantly down. And yeah,
yeah.
the thing is, we also earn more money, right? Sorry, I don't want to keep rumbling on for so long,
Oh no no
but the
no
thing is,
no keep going, keep going. It's
yeah,
interesting. It's
the thing
actually
is,
very interesting. Mm.
yeah, the thing is, we of course pay much more, but we earn also much more. I mean, I've now earning, I believe, like 3, 4 euros per hour more than I did a couple of years ago. So it's
Is that
it's not
is that
like,
is that a standard trend? Is that happening across the board, like as a general trend, or are you just lucky?
no, I think that's I mean, in Germany, what's called in English, I believe, minimal wage, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was, like, if I recall correctly, like one of the fundamental things of the SPD during their term, and they actually did a lot of that. And
Just for some
yeah, it's
context.
yeah, and so I personally feel fine. I don't have a big apartment right here. It's under 50 square meters, and I live in Eastern Germany. I live from minimal wage. I don't earn a lot, to be honest, and I'm completely fine. I can, have my apartment. I pay for a lot of services. I have Amazon Prime. I have Spotify. I pay for a lot of subscriptions for this project here, which is about 20, 30 euros per month, and I don't have any issues at all with my money,
Wow.
and it's right. And is for a lot of people, of course, prices going up. I've seen that with family and friends and all that kind of stuff, but I don't think that anyone can't afford food anymore, if you know
Okay.
what I mean.
I don't know. In the international news, we've been hearing about this like massive economic crisis and out of control
Mm, mm.
recession in Germany. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just
Yeah, I
being
think
hyped
that's
up.
happening, right? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
what you said, the recession of the economy as a whole is like happening, and that's what
Mhm.
I'm saying. We have a very, intense and dangerous situation right now. Because when we're doing nothing right now, as far I understood it, I mean, I'm not an expert, right? Don't take me too seriously. But as far I understood it, is when we don't do anything right now, we have major issues in the years coming ahead, and lose a lot of economical importance in Europe. But right now, personally, I'm completely fine, and nobody that I personally know is in any trouble.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I want to backtrack a little bit and talk about the AFD and Elon Musk's influence some
Oh,
more.
yeah. We sort
And
of went off
yeah,
topic a
no,
bit
that's
there.
no, that's cool, cool. I just wanna say some stuff, and then I want you, Hector, and Maurice to kind of jump in on it. And I just think, so this stuff is all related with the AFD and the Elon Musk and the mass migration. Um, so you've got this clear and resounding message from a big chunk of the German people that despite its pro-Russia leanings,
Yeah, that's something we
and
didn't go into, the AFD's pro-Russia leanings, which is
should
probably
we
the
go
biggest.
into that first, and then
Yeah,
I'll
we'll go
have
into
my
that
spiel?
actually. Like, I
Yeah,
think that's a big one to talk
Maurice.
about.
Yeah, so there's been like quite a long slew of um there's pro-Russia leanings in the AfD party. Many of the members have been sort of outed a little bit as having these connections to the Kremlin or to Moscow, and they seem to deal quite closely with Russia. And, it does call into question, well, if these people have these pro Russia leanings and want to economically come closer to Russia, economically, even in the face of the war, and come closer to Russia in terms of diplomacy, when diplomacy has already been tried in Crimea and it's been tried with the French and the British trying to mediate in the Ukraine. There's no more diplomacy to be had. Basically, with this, you can't be diplomatic with Putin. Putin wants his neo-Soviet empire, the expansion of it, and so with all these kinds of hair-raising things, it really is quite alarming. In fact, if I could just drop some interesting information that I read recently, there are key. It seems that between Angela Merkel and Alice Weidel, there are key similarities on their views on Russia. So both advocated for economic ties with Russia. Merkel pushed for economic cooperation with Russia through Nord Stream 2, and she even defended it as tensions with Moscow grew. Weidel also supports economic engagement with Russia, arguing that the sanctions actually hurt Germany more than Russia, and that Germany should prioritize its own interests. And then they both have a hesitation on the military confrontation with Russia. So Merkel, despite criticizing Russia's actions, actually avoided direct military escalation. And again, she pursued more diplomatic solutions. And that was key in the Minsk agreements, and which attempted to resolve the Ukraine conflict without direct confrontation. Weidel is openly against uh, Germany providing military aid to Ukraine and argues that Germany should actually avoid involvement in conflicts between Russia and NATO or Ukraine. So that's pretty hardline. And then uh, opposition to a hardline stance on Russia. Merkel, after the annexation of Crimea, was criticized for being too soft on Putin and too slow to push for sanctions. Weidel and AfD took an even softer stance, with many in her party openly calling an end to the sanctions, and even some members actually supporting Russia's actions in Ukraine, which is amazing. And then the last main point. There's quite a strong skepticism. I can only imagine, especially now, after Zelensky's visit, that there's a skepticism toward U.S. influence in Europe, and she pushed for European strategic autonomy, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, but perhaps why. But I do think America and Europe should cooperate. They can just be so much stronger that way. And then Weidel takes this even further, arguing that Germany should stop following the U.S. foreign policy altogether, especially in regards to Ukraine and Russia. And AfD has even called for Germany to leave NATO, apparently. So that's I mean, please fact check me on everything I said. I don't want to spread disinformation, but yeah, I mean, so these are quite and between two very different parties, Weidel and Merkel. Of course, we knew that Merkel's family is Stasi, and then we know that AfD is in the east of Germany. That still, as I understand, that there is some sympathy for that the kind of past in that way. Um, when they, maybe not all of them, have kind of come out of that Eastern communist phase. Or perhaps from what I've heard, from what I've read, perhaps there's still a misunderstanding between West and East Germans. But yeah, what do you? But Maurice, so you're on the ground. You're the German here. Um, you can maybe, yeah. Like, what are your what are your thoughts on this? The pro-Russia angle in Alternative for Deutschland and
Other
what
parties
yeah
too,
what
yeah.
and other parties too actually, yeah.
So the thing with what you said in the beginning, that both Merkel and the AfD with Weidel having close ties to Russia, I think it's very different times. Although I've never heard that Merkel actually apologized for anything she did with regard to Nord Stream 2, for example, but also other, close ties driving Germany into the dependence on Russian cheap energy sources like gas and oil. Um, Times were different, right? Like, she's not leading right now. I don't know what she would do right now, to be honest. I don't think she would do more than Scholz. I think they would be maybe doing the same, but the AfD is doing that all with bad intention right now, completely knowing what's going to happen to Germany if, we would do what they say. And so yeah, I think that's the big difference. And the Russian and AfD, close connection, you can say. I mean, that's not a big surprise, right? Like everything which gets their influence. The Russia gets more influence in Germany, the AfD gets more influence on German people. They are playing with the fears of the German population, therefore getting votes, right? And I mean, it's working. It's you see it. They doubled their election result. It's working. And but I think that nothing from that is really a big surprise. But I think we definitely should be taking this much more seriously than we are right now. To be honest, I mean, we live in a democratic country, and that's probably the only reason for it. But I don't know understand how this party is not completely forbidden by now.
I would, yeah, with because I've been following them quite closely and I've seen all kinds of stuff regarding that. I'm like, man, how is this? There needs to be at least some sort of how do you see it? Some reprimanding and some punitive measures implemented to sort of because it's you can't if Europe's security interests and I mean that with the mass migration that Putin is linked to into Europe and at the same time they're mass migrating migrants into Europe, they're also invading Ukraine and strategically aligned with Latin America and Africa. Much of actually most of Africa. It's like, for goodness sakes, I mean, this is yeah. How can I agree. I agree with what you said at the last part you said there. How is this even allowed? But yeah, it's really quite alarming. And what's even more interesting is how Elon Musk, his presence in the party, because of course, he, supported the great big H-1B scam into America that Americans did not vote for. And, this really calls into question, given AFD's, because in America, they voted for Trump. They didn't vote for Elon Musk. They wanted, and what was MAGA all about? It was about for the American people, for the American worker, shut the borders down, no more Mexicans, no more everybody, just Americans, And in the same way, with the AFD, they say, okay, we're going to do this. We're really going to do things on immigration. But so when you compare with Europe, you have a lot of you look at Georgia Melons, as I like to call her, in Italy.
Yeah, I was about to
She's called
mention that. Yeah.
yeah, Georgia Maloney. Yeah, Italy. You have France. You have Britain with Farage. There's like all these European countries and America. They're voting. There's a shift to the right because people are saying, enough of the immigration. We just want to be, have a safe, clean, secure country. But there, even when you vote for, there is this market shift to the right that they're saying, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. That there is no immigration guarantee to the voter base. We're still getting just as much, if not more, immigration now than ever before. So I mean, you say like, oh, that we may say, oh, look at the AFD, they can't ignore it, anymore. But I mean, the thing is that I mean, immigration is a really hot commodity for the elites, and even with the meteoric rise that the AFD um, has experienced, I really wonder, what guarantees that the voter base, and will that really apply to the CDU, SPD, and De Linke sort of negotiations that will track over the next couple of days and weeks. And so, I mean, it really, just looking at the way Europe is going and the way, the Netherlands, England, Italy, France, it seems, I saw Alice Weedle, extended an olive branch to the CDU and said, like we've got this big win, this great victory. We're standing with an open hand to you guys. But I mean, I think if you're on the, perhaps to play devil's advocate to some, I think if you're on the nationalist right wing part of the camp, which as I am, I think, to continue to extend an open hand to these more centrist parties is perhaps a mistake, and you need to sort of just double down and keep expanding that rhetoric among your own base, and keep fulfilling what they want, and not try to, you know, put up these, you know, not try to satisfy these candidates and other parties by voting for them. We like, nobody cares about Ted Cruz, nobody cares about Marco Rubio. Like, we don't care about these people, and I imagine it's the same thing. Rather, in right wing uh, politics, people should actually try to create their own thing and their own candidates. Not to say that AFD is, completely authentic and not totally astroturfed with Russian agents. But I mean, I think, in politics, politics runs on money, and in politics, the house always wins. So you need to become the house. And so therefore, if you want, I'm trying to say, if you want closed borders and end to mass migration, and even a big deep mass deportations, you need to um, put up your own candidates for your own reasons or purposes.
Do you mean
So
like
like from
independent candidates? Because like, what are you talking about?
well, there was actually a good a Ukrainian I actually follow. It says it's a real shame that anti-immigration politics in the United States rode the wave of contrarian populism rather than the instincts of self-preservation. It has now been irreversibly tied to low IQ conspiracy theories. And I completely agree. I mean, that is exactly the dynamic that we're. I'll see. I'll put it up so it's there. This is a Ukrainian man, and it's so true. I mean, it is contrarian populism that we're
Well, we've always
following.
said, sorry, we've always said, Gilbert, that the main problem with the right, pretty much globally, is its contrarian attitude. Instead of actually having like real solutions and a real
Exactly.
vision for the future, is just the rampant contrarianism on right wing politics.
100%. And, that's the kind of thing where I see, Elon Musk with his influence in American politics. And then suddenly, and in American politics, when for 10 years he was solidly against Trump, he was always criticizing Trump because he's a liberal, whoop-de-doo kind of boy.
Well, he's like a
And
California liberal, like all these other
yeah, yeah,
California
Silicon Valley.
billionaires. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was against Trump for like all these years, and then um, and then when Trump was looking like, okay, Trump's got it again for the third time, the nomination, right? Then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, a year or so, not even a year,
It was
he's
like
like, oh
months.
no,
Yeah.
I'm super pro Trump now, and I'm super like I'm all about Trump. He's actually a really good. He just suddenly had a switch, even though he was hotly against Trump, and it's just like so you've got this sort of um, yeah, this wave of contrarian populism, and then the So rather than going for people like the Elon Musks, the Vivek Ramaswamis, all these tin people, these fakers is what
Yeah,
they
yeah,
are. That we need to put up our own candidates with the instincts of self-preservation. Not Russians, not big tech, little tech people, not lesbians with Sri Lankan wives.
yeah.
It's like you put it. Okay, who are your people? Your people are your people who want the same thing, and it's just like I really question, putting, Alice White. I think a lot of Germans would have looked at that and gone, oh, what are we experience? What is this? And it's it's and with Elon Musk, kind of wandering about like this in a very creepy fashion, trying to make a name for himself, I guess, and influence politics all over the world. He does have corporations in Shanghai, and he actually attempted to buy missiles from Russia for his rockets at one point, which, looking at the Oreshniks, I don't know if that would have been a good buy, how the Oreshniks are all breaking down. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I just considering all that, I don't think the nationalist right wing really, or anybody for that matter, anybody, really, with this current global political class, that there are no guarantees. Like I'm saying, because a lot of the right wing and a lot of people are like voting, like, yeah, they're gonna do something on immigration when they stopped updating the Mexican border deportation
Yeah,
uh,
like
thing
within
because it
like
was so
weeks. Yeah,
embarrassing.
within
Yeah,
weeks.
so it's like people understand the house always wins in politics. We are not the house. We don't have anti-immigration hawks. We're voting for people who just say, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'll do something about immigration. Yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, see you in 3 or 4 years, and maybe it'll be sorted out then if you vote for me." You know, it's just so, and so with Elon Musk with his H-1B scam. Even though they voted for Trump and America, it's just like that this is we have a we have people need to acknowledge that our political sphere across the Western world, they're filled with businessmen, okay, and so they think only like businessmen. We don't have warrior aristocrats of the past that were tasked with you know defending and maintaining, you know, who we are as a German people, or an English people, or British people, whatever, a French people, the we have a new class of businessmen who they can only think of, and this is why you get talks of, oh, diplomacy, all war, all conflict can be smoothed over with diplomacy. Meanwhile, where we have Crimea and then advances on the eastern region of Ukraine. I mean, you've got JD Vance saying, "Oh, you need to be thankful, and we need diplomacy." It's like, man, what are you talking about? You have Putin in Russia with his Kremlin class of red aristocrats with a spine of steel, coming in, and they want to expand the empire. What more? What can diplomacy solve in this situation? What more diplomacy is needed? They need Tauruses. They need HIMARS. That's the best diplomacy that there is. So it's just like it's really incredible to see. Look, I've talked a lot. Okay, I really have talked a lot, but I'm just saying. The house, you are not being represented by the political house. Political house is filled with a bunch of people, businessmen, pro-Russia people who try to get the businessmen to cooperate with them, with their aims in a way that is beneficial to China and Russia and North Korea and Iran. Okay, and well, mainly with Russia and China. Okay, and you're not in there. Okay, so we've got to start getting think smarter and building our own things if we want clean, safe, secure, economically prosperous countries. We're not being they're representing our enemies, our mortal enemies who want to put us under global communism rather than us. Think about that for a moment. It's they've got more people that are pro Russian, pro communist than they are. Oh, let's do what's good for the German people. I hope I made sense in that long spiel, but seeing the Elon Musk, seeing the AFD, seeing the stance on immigration, or the quote unquote delivery, piss poor delivery immigration measures across all the worlds, it just makes me think, well, knitting all this together in a bleak sweater, what like this is clearly this is not good, and we can't rely on anybody. We have to get smarter. That I'll just say that there. Hector and Maurice, do you want to jump in on that?
I I just want to add one thing. It's like, I never got why these parties like the AFD and all these other ones in all around Europe are against the mass migration of people, but then support Russia. I mean, at least Maloney sort of came out recently and said that Russia was linked to mass migration and
Scissor
he's pushing it.
scissor strategy. Scissor
Yeah,
strategy.
yeah,
Okay,
it
sorry.
doesn't
Go
make any
ahead.
sense.
Scissor,
Yeah,
I
but it's
just
like
want to.
you'd think the people that are voting for these parties or running for positions would go, I'm against mass migration, and then at the same time, the Russians and Belarusians are like flying in all these Syrians and Iraqis and Afghanistanis and whatever,
That's
and trying to push
yeah.
them over the border into Poland. So you'd think that there would maybe be a bit of like connection there, that maybe supporting Russia while being against mass migration isn't really a coherent ideology. But I don't know. I always thought it was bizarre.
Yeah. Oh, it's how the Russians operate, the Russian agents, and but it works. People. The people are in such a desperate situation that the Russians have certainly contributed through their communist agents like Merkel, uh, that they have managed to create this crisis, and then the problem reaction solution, right? That they are the solution. The Russian agents. You got Russian agents, causing the problem, and then you got Russian agents who have got the solution. And this is, people have to understand that this problem has been gestating in Europe and America for many, many decades. So they've had a long time to implement these active measures and this sort of propaganda that now we're experiencing the full brunt of, with the mass migration, with the invasion of Crimea and Ukraine, and people, with Mikhail Gorbachev being the president of Green Cross International, a lot of the policy on environment and green and climate, is simply a way to deindustrialize a lot of the European nations, and it's whereas to meet parity, military parity, that the Europeans are going to have to mobilize very quickly, and they project that it's going to take 3 to 4 years to get their military active again. So and good standing mobilization. So this is but yeah, I can't remember the KGB general who said that, Hector, but he deemed it as he called it the Soviet scissor strategy, and was a particular general who I can't. If I find him, I'll mention him. But the so Maurice, did you want to jump on that? Did you want to agree, disagree, or what did you have to say?
Honestly, there was so much to talk about. I don't think I have anything to add to that. Most of the things you already, talked in very much detail about, and uh, to be honest, I'm not looking at other countries so closely. So, for example, I can't say whether migration is really a top topic in other countries which developed into this more right situation, or people being more right, voting more right. I don't know that. I just know it from my standpoint, from an Eastern German, that migration is probably one of the main issues
Mm.
we have here, which resulted in the rise of the AfD. But yeah, but apart from that, to be honest, I can't say anything to that.
Okay, okay. No, that's fine. Let me ask you this then. Did you kind of get what I was saying, both of you though? Did you kind of follow along? I'm very all over the place with the way I speak. I'm sorry about that, but did you kind of get the gist of what I was saying?
Most of that, yes.
Yeah.
I won't lie to you. I kind of had issues following in between, but
Yeah.
most of it, yes, definitely.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, because well, I mean, you speak German and Ukrainian, right? So I mean, I mean, that's like your
I
third.
speak Ukrainian.
Do you?
No.
Oh, okay, okay, no, no. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, English is your second, so that's fair enough. That's understandable. But
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
kind of happy with my English. I have trouble with, some pronunciations, and I have trouble or issues, find the right words in certain times. But apart from that, I'm quite happy with my English.
No, your English is very
your
good.
English is very good. We understand you perfectly. It's great. It's yeah, it's great when someone has good English because some people it's like I mean I talked to someone a couple of weeks ago who literally was trying to talk to me and they were literally making noises like this going and I was like I was just trying to like I was so uncomfortable and I was just nodding my head going oh thank you okay sure. Well, that's great. And he was going, and I was like, holy shit, I have no idea what he's saying. But anyway, yeah. So your English is fantastic, by the way. And let me ask you this then. So you're not happy with the election results, and as I think I heard you say, so and that's because you're a German who supports Ukraine, and why is that you don't trust Mr. Merz to deliver for Ukraine? Even after the poor result from Olaf Scholz? Is that why, Maurice?
So, no, I don't think that Olaf Scholz did poorly.
Okay.
He could have done much, much more, definitely. I mean, it can't be the case that the third largest or the third strongest economic in the world is providing, something around 44 billion in 3 years for the biggest security challenge we faced on this continent after the Second World War. That's a little bit less, to be honest, and especially when it comes to the military assistance of Ukraine. I mean, the big issue we have here is that the most Ukrainians fled to Germany or seek protection in Germany, right? We have over 1 million people from Ukraine here for over 2 years now. And that means that a lot of the costs, a lot of these 44 billion, the majority of that, not all of course, but the majority of that, or the biggest share, went to the support of Ukrainian refugees and all that kind of stuff. That's good for them being here, have a good living and don't need to worry about anything when they're fleeing with their children to us and all that kind of stuff. I very much support it, but that means in return that other parts of the assistance, like the military assistance in particular, is falling short. I believe you can say that, right? Falling short.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can.
And yeah, when you see that, for example, with the UK as an example, the UK has done a couple of billions less than Germany in terms of military support, despite having a very strong military, a good industrial base, and also being a wealthy country. But the big difference between the UK and Germany is that UK doesn't even come close to having so much or so many Ukrainian people seeking protection in your country. So their share of their total assistance in terms of military aid is much, much greater than Germany's. And that's a big issue I see. And with Merz, I'm not sure if he will particularly do much more than Scholz. I hope so, definitely. I don't think he will. I definitely don't think he will do less. 100% not.
Mhm.
Um, the problem with Ukraine and the election is um, that the AfD and Die Linke has gotten so many votes, and I quickly mentioned that early on in the stream, that they have in the new parliament, not in the current one, but in the new parliament, they will have a blocking minority, which means that for certain types of actions where you would need 2/3 of the votes
Oh,
in the
right,
parliament,
right.
That's a good point.
um,
That's a good
it
point.
can't pass. So, for example, when we
Wow.
want to have a new special fund or reform the debt break, I believe even when you want to declare a state of emergency because you're getting attacked, you would need a two-third majority in the parliament. And in
Wow.
theory, they could prevent all of that when both parties would work together. And so, for example, that's why we are right now working on setting up a new special fund. There are numbers between 200 and 500 billion euros mentioned, which is getting defense and Ukraine assistance. Additionally, and they need to do that right now because the new parliament has their first sitting, I believe, 23rd or 24th of March, something like this, definitely this month. And when it's done by this, or when they have their first sitting, and we don't have these issues sorted out, then we have massive issues. And that's why I, for example, am not happy. I'm super happy that the BSV, which is very pro-Russian, is getting not into the parliament. But the good news end there, to be honest.
Okay, interesting. So, okay, well, at least we'll be getting something that hopefully matches. Hopefully, something more. Is it more? Is is it more likely though that we'll be getting more with Mertz though than we did with Schultz? Is there at least a little bit more likelihood with Mertz and Schultz, or
I
that?
mean, it
Yeah.
it depends really. The thing is, right now, or you have to imagine when we go back to November 2024, the government coalition, the Ampel coalition or the traffic light coalition, collapsed basically over the debt break, over Ukraine spending, or over this kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
And so the federal budget for the current year was not achieved or was not approved.
Mm.
We have an emergency budget right now, and in contrast to what's happening in the US, everything which is bound in contracts and everything is being paid. That's the system works that basically the system can't fail. The government doesn't collapse, stop working because they don't have money. That's not how it works in Germany. So that's very good news. But that also means that we're currently bound to 4 billion in military assistance for 2025. That's around 30 to 4 billion euros less than last year. The thing is now, when they actually achieve everything of that, they form a coalition government, they approve a new budget, and they add a couple of billion euros to that budget in Ukraine assistance. People are saying, okay, Merz is doing more than Scholz. At least that's my suspicion. Problem is, he, in my opinion, wouldn't do that, depending on how many billions they would add to the draft budget, right? Because Scholz would have increased the assistance anyway. He wanted, for example, 3 billion more, so 7 billion, same as the beginning of last year. And so it's uncertain. I think he will definitely do more than these 4 billion because this is nearly 100 or 100% bound already in contract. So when it stays like this, Germany for the whole year, without very few exceptions due to tricks via the EPF, in case you know what that is, we can't announce new assistance for Ukraine. There will be deliveries happening, but we can't announce new assistance in case there are some emergencies on the battlefield. Or right now, best example, US assistance not being or not
We can't announce new
being
assistance.
materialized, right? When
Mm,
the US is
mm,
not sending any aid, then it's definitely an emergency and we need to send much more, announce much more. But we can't because we don't have any money. And so yeah, that would be a thing we have to take into consideration and also have a look at it in the future, in the near future. Um, but one can't speak about it right now for with 100% certainty because Merz is talking about we need to do more or we haven't done enough prior. He's not ruling out a delivery of Taurus, and in theory, a delivery of Taurus itself would already be more than Scholz was doing, right? At least in this sense. So yeah, I hope that made sense, this explanation.
okay. No, it did perfect sense. That's awesome. So, okay. I guess unless you want to say something, Hector, I guess we can shift on to the American relations with Europe at large and how the America might associate with Germany with the new German government. That's certainly something to consider. The blocking power that that AFD has. Is that correct?
AFD,
Yeah,
potentially with the left party, if it's for any sort of pro-Ukrainian uh,
yeah.
legislation. So why is I guess it's like some sort of constitutional thing. So it's you can't have military aid without a supermajority. Is that how it works in Germany?
Mm,
No. That's not what I mean. The only thing there is right now with the left wings and or Die Linke and the AfD, that they have so many votes in the parliament that they have achieved a blocking minority.
Hmm.
So for regulations or for things where you would need 2/3 of the parliament, in theory, when they are working together and every one of them are working against the motion of the government, it won't pass. Or stuff like this, basically, right? With the Sondervermögen or with a reform of the debt break. When they would vote against such a proposal, it won't pass, and it's impossible for the next 4 years.
Wow.
But
mm,
not general assistant. That's bound. We have already contract signed until 2028, 2029. So there will definitely be aid coming, assistance coming this year for at least 4 billion euros. And yeah, it will be an issue to get much more than that. It won't be an issue to get a little bit more. So, for example, there was a proposal by our foreign minister and the minister of defense to get around 3 billion euros in additional assistance. For Ukraine, they had a list of, a little shopping list. They wanted to buy, weird howitzers, Patriot ammunition, all that kind of stuff, and very good. But the SPD basically wanted to make an exception to the debt break and finances via extra debt, while the other parties, CDU, for example, they said, okay, we're fine with providing Ukraine with 3 billion more in assistance, but we don't want to lift the debt break or make an exception to the debt break. Same the FDP, we want to finance this through saving in the regular budget. So, for example, for the Bundeswehr, around 500 million euros, or for the Bundeswehr, around 500 million euros, which was more calculated for as energy costs, and they saved 500 billion euros for the current year in energy costs. So these 500 million euros could be now used for Ukraine. We actually did this at the end of 2024, I believe in September it was, with 397 million euros. Calculated energy costs too high, gave the extra money to Ukraine. And that's basically what they wanted to do with this 3 billion euros. And they were rambling on with, we want to do it with the debt break. We want to just save in the government. So there are ways to get some money, just not in the amounts it would need it, right? I mean, when we are honest, when we're really honest, and we want a Ukrainian victory, and we want it as
mhm,
fast as possible, we need to not give 1 or 2 or 3 billion euros more. You can finance a lot of shit with it,
mhm.
but sorry, can I swear?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I
Yeah,
haven't
yeah.
asked. Okay. Oh, Jesus Christ. Whew. Um, so you can finance a lot with that, right? With 3 billion euros. That's a lot of ammunition, spare parts, armored vehicles, definitely.
Mm,
But the amounts it would need is more like 20, 30, 40 billion euros. And you can't save that in the regular budget. There's no way, right? And so that's the issue we are facing right here. There will definitely be more assistance than just the 3 billion, than just the 4 billion euros right now, because there are ways to, get more assistance or more funding to just allocate it for Ukraine, but not in the necessary amounts, not even close.
Well, hopefully Merz can make some fundamental changes to the German economy, which will allow for a greater a greater I guess leftover for or greater funds for Ukraine that can be sent for Europe's defense and Ukraine's defense, and to stop the advancement of the Soviet Empire. So that's hopefully he can do something. I mean, I don't even know if yeah, we'll if there we can really count necessarily on economic guarantees, because it's like even with Doge, like and again, this is getting into like American stuff, but it, obviously making great cuts and doing good things with those cuts, but with the amount of debt that there is, um, yeah, I think it's great, it's awesome, but it's like you probably you need to do a lot, you need to do heaps more to bring the debt down, and then also
The thing
yeah,
is, we don't need to.
mm.
Sorry for interrupting, but
No, no,
when
go
we are
ahead, please.
looking at other countries within Europe, how many debt they have and how much debt Germany has,
Uh-huh.
it's like some countries, economically wealth countries, are like double the amount of debt Germany has, right?
Mm,
We are in such a good position to make extra debt, to be honest,
mm,
in a
mm,
really, really good situation. And the thing
okay.
is, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's a holy grail. That's wrong, but the debt break is something for some parties, like the FDP, for example. The debt break is something completely untouchable, you know.
Mm,
And yeah, are you just to elaborate on this? Are you a fan, for example, on Lord of the Rings? I mean, was filmed in New Zealand, right? So
yeah,
Yeah, they're good
yeah,
movies.
so
we all are. Yeah, everybody in like, yeah, it's
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm actually
okay,
a
so
hobbit.
there's a
I'm just kidding.
yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a hobbit. Yeah.
So in one of the films of Lord of the Rings, there's a water body basically close to Mordor,
Mm,
where Frodo and Sam are already with Gollum, and they were like taken prisoner by not by orcs, by some humans, right? And there was a situation where Gollum was like fishing in some water body, which
yeah,
was like very holy.
yeah.
And some of the people said, if I recall correctly, just alone looking at this water body is a violation and could be sentenced with death. And that's basically the debt break for the FDP and other parties. And so just so you have an imagination, it's kind of crazy when you think in how of a good situation we actually are in terms of debt, how low our debt is, how much room we actually have to make new debt, and still it's like until um Russia's war against Ukraine, like the full scale invasion, nobody wanted to touch it at all. It feels like, um, with very, very few exceptions. And right now, it's kind of also the fault of Merz, to be honest, because they wanted to, as I said earlier, they wanted to have these 3 billion euros in additional assistance and wanted to further finance other stuff via an exception to the debt break, declare emergency basically. And Merz or Merz party, the CDU-CSU, was the one who prevented this. The Greens were happy with both options: finances via debt or finances from the regular budgets through cuts. They just wanted more assistance for Ukraine, right? But they prevented this, and as soon as they won the elections, Merz went public and said, "Yeah, we kind of need to work on the debt break." It's like, you dumb blah blah blah. That's what the other parties were saying for the past months, and now we are in this critical situation that we only have less than a month's time
Well, let's
for
be
that.
fair. I think Mertz probably wanted the government to collapse at the time, so he was just
Yeah,
like
of course, there was a
holding
political
his
move.
cards. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just,
Interesting.
I just want to explain that we are not in a bad situation to make new debt. Not at all. We are probably one of the best situations.
Well, yeah, you look at the amount of debt Germany has compared to like Italy or France or
Oh yeah.
Spain, and it's in a much better position.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot, a lot. I believe like I said, I'm not an expert, but I believe Germany is something. They always said Germany is something around like 60% or so, while other countries, economically strong countries, are heading towards 200%. It's
Yeah.
Germany is in a really, really, really good situation, and there's no issue with making new debt even in the amounts of, you have it open, the article, like 200, 300, 400 billion euros. I mean, we made this kind of debt, if I recall correctly, for COVID measures, for example, without any issues. and so we should definitely do it for Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, if you had that sort of spending, I think the debt in Germany would go up by like what, like 5%? It would go from 65 to like 70, and it's like that's still not too bad.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, what do you think about? So you clearly have a good grasp. Do you look at much at Russia's economy?
Not at all, no.
Oh,
So
okay.
I have chocolate
Oh,
in
okay.
um, was eating a little bit of chocolate. So within my group Tochny, I mentioned it when we were off stream, right?
Hmm,
We have one or two people who are very like deep into Russian economy, and they could talk for like 6 hours straight
hmm.
about everything.
Oh, cool. Well,
Um,
why don't we bring you and whoever those people are back on sometime, and we can compare and contrast, and if you want to, that'd be cool. But keep going.
yeah, they're not living in Europe, or this person I'm thinking about. I believe it's much more closer to your time zone. So it would be better if you do, a stream by yourself. But I'm not really involved with Russian economy at all. The only thing I know is when Russia would be a democratic country, not a dictatorship, the government probably would have collapsed long ago with
Mm,
this economy.
right, right, right. Yeah. Well, maybe we could do like a three-way thing: New Zealand, Germany, and wherever your bro is at. But yeah, okay, interesting. Yeah, because it seems like they're doing it pretty tough, but the West just isn't really putting the screws in. And to be honest, they're not putting the screws into the Chinese economy either to really. Um, they still want to cling to this idea that you can trade with China and Russia and smooth things over, but it's like, well, can we just look at things how they really are for a moment and realize what's actually going on here? But yeah, people just want to do business, I guess, and want to ignore the stark reality of things. And this is why, people like Elon Musk and JD Vance and the PayPal mafia,
Yeah.
they just cannot be trusted. They're willing to sell out like this, sell us out to H1B Vijits, or sell us out to Russians, or it doesn't really matter. But well, okay, with that was very
Can I
interesting,
just add
Maurice.
something on the Russian economy? Because there is actually a parallel in the Russian economy and the German economy, is that on a government level, they both had very little debt. But because now Russia's at war, it's actually willing to go into debt to fund its war. So it's sort of
Mm,
interesting that Russia's willing to do that, but then Germany isn't to support its, allies and defense interests in Ukraine. So just an
mm.
interesting parallel there.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. Yeah, Putin doesn't really. I mean, at the end of the day, it only affects I guess the lower classes of
Well, I
lower
mean,
socio.
inflation's not going to affect Putin and the oligarchs, is it? That's
But
just
it's
going to.
yeah, it's kind of good. It makes yeah, that's right, and it's kind of for him. It's good because it means that more people will be more willing to, pay, go into the army to get paid those exorbitant
Yeah, I
amounts
know it
of.
works. It works. Like there's high inflation, but there's also and that's because of high government spending in Russia and their willingness to go into debt. But anyways, that's just my thoughts on that.
Mm, mm. Do we have time to get Maurice's views on like the American relationship with Germany going into the future, or should
Yeah, I would
pick?
like Trump with JD Vance. I mean, we had JD Vance come to Germany. I don't know if we want to talk about that. We've talked about Germany a lot. So we had that. That was a very interesting. With JD Vance, you're seeing these very bizarre, like foreign exchange, like diplomatic exchanges that you've like never seen before. He's just like going into these countries and forums and talks and just like
Yeah,
absolutely just being as hostile and belligerent as possible. It's sort of crazy to see.
lambasting some.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like it's yeah, it's does not bode well for future relations in between Europe in general and America. I mean, they really need each other's support if they're going to and to really work closer if they're going to actually stave off what is a multifaceted threat to the West.
I'll play this in
And
the background with captions just muted, so You can
Should we
watch
just
this.
play it? Should we just play it where it all goes wrong? Maybe.
I think this is where it goes wrong. But should we just play it and give our commentary?
Before we play it, can I say just listen to what the whole conference was going fine, absolutely fine, and it's only when JD Vance chimes in that it just completely goes to dog
Dog water.
yeah, yeah. It completely just goes to crap. It's only when and why was Vance even there in the first place? I reckon, but yeah, it just as soon as he chimes in, out of the whole conference, like then it just goes to crap. So. Yeah, I just want to watch how he goads Zelensky into. Of course, Zelensky's very on edge because his people are undergoing an ethnic cleansing, but yeah, but anyway,
Should we
yeah,
watch the
I'm
first
very
couple minutes of
suspicious
this?
of Vance.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it. I'm just
You align yourself too much with Putin. What's your message for them?
Well, if I didn't align myself with both of them, you'd never have a deal. You want me to say really terrible things about Putin and then say, "Hi, Vladimir, how are we doing on the deal?" That doesn't work that way. I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America and for the good of the world. I'm aligned with the world, and I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred. And I
Wow,
understand
you're too
that,
hateful,
but
dude.
I can tell
You're
you the
hateful
other
of this
side
guy
is
that's
exactly
invading
in
your
love
country
with,
and ethically
him
genociding
either.
entire regions.
So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be
Can I
tougher
just
than
pause it? Imagine if, like, after 9/11, that like someone went to
Yeah.
George Bush. It's like, wow, you're just too hateful against Al Qaeda.
Yeah.
Like, just stop being so hateful, dude. Like, it's ridiculous.
it's like such a millennial coded sort
Yeah.
of answer. Like, bro, you just gotta chill out. Like, they bombed like your towers and like killed thousands of people. Like,
Yeah,
what's
just stop being
wrong,
so
man?
hateful. Stop being so
Yeah.
hateful and make a deal.
So yeah, it's a business answer aligned with the world. These people, they just want to trade and quote unquote get along with everybody. Air quotes. It's just you can't. There are people who want to dominate others. That's just as old as humanity has been in existence.
All right,
Oh,
we'll continue.
any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough, but you're never going to get a deal that way. So that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
Can I say something? Well, hey, I will respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014.
Yeah, it was definitely 2014. That's just
yeah, what was that
stupid.
about? He just randomly said 2015.
What, did he forget when Crimea got occupied? It was definitely 2014.
Yeah. Yeah.
2014 and 2014.
2014.
I mean, to be fair, a bit later, Zelensky gets a date wrong as well, so I guess we'll chalk that up to
So
I was
he killed.
not
the two
here.
of them.
Yeah, but
That's exactly
but-
right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, yeah, was the situation the same? The people are been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him. Me, like a new president, in 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed with him gas contract. Gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, Mr.
strong-
President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you
When he
guys are
started
going
it.
around and
Yeah.
forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for
Have you
trying to
ever
bring an end to this
Have you
conflict.
ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a
saw a video.
propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have
And do you think that
I will-
it's
I
respectful
will answer.
to come to the Oval Office of the
will
United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent
this?
the destruction of your country?
lot
Wait, I'll
of-
just
a
pause
lot
it.
of-
What was that?
See this? He's deliberately goading him into an argument. Like Zelensky didn't originally come into this with hostilities, right?
Yeah, well, there's
Everybody's
40
like-
minutes before this. I mean, we're not going to play the whole thing because we're sort of time limited. We're just watching the argument. But there was 40 minutes of, dialogue that was, civil before
That's right.
JD Vance started talking about him disrespecting the Oval Office. And
So yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like he's right. Like, well, what negotiations are you talking about? They're still pressing forward into my country and just killing everyone, and just reducing everything to rubble, and so he's right. Like, well, what else can we do? Like, we've tried to deal with them. We've tried, and then Vance gets his knickers in a twist, and he starts, saying, "Oh, well, you're being disrespectful. And you got to understand, like, for someone like Zelensky who is having his country invaded, his people killed, and ethnically displaced by Central Asians, and he's trying to go around to other countries to garner support, who should have been totally in full support of Ukraine from the get-go, and it basically made the Budapest memorandum pretty much null.
it's worthless.
Basically,
That memorandum.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is what I mean. That was supposed to be a security guarantee, but it ended up just being a piece of paper. So you got to understand, like, this is, if you're in that situation, like that would really, you're your people are being killed. It's like you're in a sense of extreme desperation. And, and for Vance to just suddenly come in like that, and you remember Vance is someone with very dubious connections with the PayPal mafia. He himself is a lesbian with his Sri Lankan wife, and he's got his fat face, and he's again, this isn't a tough guy. This is and he's had a long record of actually saying, oh, who cares about Ukraine, while the deals with Israel are just completely unconditional. You've
Yeah.
got these guys pushing Netanyahu in his seat, and doing his dirty laundry that he brings over to the White House, and then an actual geostrategic United States geostrategic defense interest in Europe with Ukraine is just treated like, oh, we'll take it or leave it, we don't really care, and you're being disrespectful. But if you look at this, look how JD, the guy's so snake-like. He goads him into putting Zelensky into a defensive position, and Zelensky's saying, "Look, we've tried diplomacy. We've tried it many times with all the other mediators from Europe and Britain and stuff. Germany, we tried it. He kept pushing forth. We tried, the trade stuff. Again, that was, that fell through. So what diplomacy can you possibly? I mean, he's trying to take over my country, and you still want to talk. That's a problem. People are all talk, 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 but all this talk only benefits Putin, and it doesn't benefit people like us in the West. So, I mean, this guy is these, and the documents from Luda Media show that there are there was it was even floated that Marco Rubio could have had some you know, what do you call it? Conflict of interest. That he had some ties to Cuban intelligence,
Oh,
even,
really? I didn't
which
know
is
about
where
that one.
yeah. There's been talk about that, and then of course JD Vance is a whole hodgepodge of. Conflict of interests, and Tulsi Gabbard is a psychic
Elon.
warfare. Elon, yeah, RFK. I mean, these people are not real. Again, they're business people, and Vance is very suspect in this. And you look at what he did here. He set it up, and of course Zelensky is defensive, but we'll keep going. As he
Yeah.
would be. It's entirely reasonable to be defensive, but.
Questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't know
God
that.
bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering this
position to
question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly what
this.
you're doing.
I'm not
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very
you will
good.
feel influence.
We're going to feel very
I'm
good and
telling
very
you,
strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the
bad
very
position,
beginning
and
of
he
the
happens
war.
to be right about
From the
it.
very beginning of the war.
You're not
Mr.
in a
Brown,
good position.
I
You don't
was-
have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing
cards. But
cards.
right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
what do you
You're
think about?
gambling with
What do you
World
think
War
about?
III. And
In
what you're
truth,
doing
they
is
are.
very disrespectful to the country, this country.
I'm
That's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said
very
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once this
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting, have
today.
you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to
The funny thing is when
Pennsylvania
I
and
can
camped.
interrupt for one
Yeah,
second.
go
Go
for it.
ahead, go interrupt.
Well, I mean I've watched the interview as probably most people did, right? But when he said, I mean, apart from the bullshit they were always saying, but when he said you're gambling with the lives of millions of people and you're gambling with World War III, and when you actually realize that what the US is doing right now puts Europe much closer, or puts the whole world basically much closer to World War III than what they have done before,
Yeah.
meaning supporting Ukraine. It's just insane. I mean,
Yeah.
you just see that they are super influenced by Russia, and I can imagine since November 2024 until Trump and Vance die, basically the champagne bottles are popping every day in Russia and China. It's
That's right.
it's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. No, 100% correct. 100. By playing this kind of Nelly kind of skirt around the issue game that the Trump admin is playing, it actually brings us closer to World War III because Putin views that as a sign of weakness. We're invading, your geostrategic interests, and you're not going to do anything about it. You want to come to the table to basically concede, to make concessions with me, so I can get more out of what I've done. So I mean, it's and to blame Zelensky for that, but this is what the Chinese agents meant when they know how to play certain factions of the Trump admin against each other. We're seeing it real
Yeah.
time in this video, in real time, and JD Vance is executing that very unfortunately perfectly, as Jeff as Nyquist was discussing with us. So that we're seeing this, how these factions are being played off against one another, and we can't actually, again, just like with the mass immigration, we can't get anything proper done. But yeah, it's if anything, it's actually Zelensky that is and this isn't like a bomb take or whatever, but like, yeah, it's actually Zelensky that is actually preventing World War III happening, and it's people like Vance who are actually, through his weakness, is actually bringing us closer to World War III by giving Putin everything he wants. Putin's going to continue. The Baltic states are taking this seriously. They're arming. They're in a arming frenzy competition right now. The Baltic states, Poland. So it's this is just retard rhetoric. But anyway,
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll just say this: the only path to peace is like via a defeated Russia.
yeah,
That's the only
that's right.
long-term peace you're going to get is when Russia's actually defeated in Ukraine and they come
Yeah.
to they come to the negotiating table, and you hopefully see a change of government within Russia to something that can is more inclusive towards long-term, decade-long peace. You can't really have that with the current Russian regime. It's impossible. They've
Yeah,
shown time and time again by invading all these neighbors of theirs, Georgia, Ukraine, that long-term Chechnya. I guess you could argue that's more of like an internal conflict, but like the long-term peace isn't really possible with the current Russian regime, and I think that's pretty obvious. But apparently, JD Vance and Trump don't really see that.
yeah.
Campaign for the opposition in October, offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can...
not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No,
Can
you've
I
done a lot
answer?
of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning.
No.
You have a damn good chance of
We are
coming out
staying,
okay because of
Mr.
us.
President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
allowed.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
allowed.
in this
We
cabinet.
gave you through
I
this
said thank
stupid president $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment,
You
and your
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about
if
West
you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me-
equipment,
You invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3
okay?
days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I tell you.
Just say thank you.
I said a lot of.
Can I just say, like, this thank you thing's just silly? It's like, what does this even have to do with any sort of negotiations? It's like, you didn't say thank you enough. It's just bizarre.
It
Yeah.
definitely is because it's also completely not true. I mean,
Yeah, of course.
especially I'm following Germany, right? And when it comes to Germany, every time he talks with Scholz or he talks with Merz or he is somebody visits him or he's visiting Germany, the Ukrainian ambassador here in Germany, like every week, every meeting, always the first thing which comes out of their out of their mouth is like, "Thank you, Germany, and thank you, German
Yeah.
people, for doing what you're doing." And I can't imagine they haven't done this with the US.
Oh, I mean, they have. I mean,
100% bullshit what they're saying.
yeah, well, I mean, did you hear what Vance says? Like, well, you didn't say it in this specific meeting. It's like, what sort of?
He probably did.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he probably did, but I don't really remember. But it's
Yeah,
sort of just
Zelensky was
it's
saying
nothing. It's a nothing burger.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zelensky was probably saying, thank you, and Vance was like, "Did you say fuck you, bastard?"
Yeah, I actually sent a video. I don't think we need to pull it up, but there's like a whole video by the Kiev Independent where Zelensky is going, "Thank you, Americans, for your military aid, and thank you to the president." And yeah, there's literally whole video compilations of Zelensky saying thank you to Americans, and America. Like,
Oh, well, he didn't say it this one time specifically, I suppose, and that's somehow a massive point of contention in this discussion.
Yeah.
All right, we'll continue.
Except that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's very important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the cars. You're buried there. Your people are dying.
I just like Zelensky's look at the camera there. He's just thinking like, what the heck?
You're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I wanted this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a
But I
ceasefire?
said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire
Yeah, with
faster than
security
Germany.
guarantees.
Ask our people about
NATO
ceasefire, what they
membership.
think.
That wasn't
doesn't
with
matter
me.
for you what-
That
what
wasn't
is
with me.
made.
That was with
Brazil.
a guy named Biden, who was not a smart person.
But this
That
is
was
your,
with,
this
that was
is
with
your
Obama.
president. It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the
That's the thing.
javelins
Military
to
aid
take out
to
all those
Ukraine
tanks.
from America did start with
Obama
Trump.
gave you sheets.
Hmm.
In fact, the statement is Obama
true.
gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful.
You gotta be
Because
more.
let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry,
It's going to
here.
be a tough deal to make
Um,
because the attitudes have to change.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do you do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you saying?
What if
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now?
But they have
Okay?
What?
What if they broke it?
It's like, why are you
No,
asking
they broke
completely
it with
reasonable
Biden
questions?
Because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me. Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt where they used him and Russia. You ever hear of that deal? That was a phony Hunter Biden, Joe Biden scam. Hillary Clinton, Shifty Adam Schiff. It was a Democrat scam.
What is he even
And
talking?
he had to go through
Oh, I
that.
don't know. I think he's talking
It's,
about the supposed Russia collusion or something like that.
That is interesting, and Trevor Loudon is a good source to look into that. But yeah, when Trump, I'll just briefly, I'll try to be as quick as I can. But in 2016, when Trump ran, the Democrats immediately pivoted to Trump as a Russian agent. You know, Putin this, Putin that. He's dealing with the Russians and stuff like that. And I mean, look, I mean, Trump was actually quite tough on Russia. He sanctioned them quite. Even Sergei Lavrov admits that Trump wasn't. I mean, there is this stuff on, you know, Trump being Krasnov, a KGB agent, where two KGB officers, you know, said that we employed Trump as a KGB agent, and certainly Trump's wife, the Czech wife, was associated. Her family was associated with the Communist Party there, and there was supposed to be speculation. And he visited, I think, the Czech Republic, uh, and yeah, so there's a lot of, you know, swirling rumors and allegations there. And hey, I'm willing to, I'll need to look into that deeper myself. But he's basically, Trump is saying that you know, they put me through hell. And by the way, the Democrats are very thoroughly infiltrated by communists, which is why I say Trevor Loudon is a good source to look into this from the Epoch Times, because the Democrat, you know, the people who attribute, you know, the Russia stuff to the Republicans, and there's certainly a thread there, a red thread there, but the Democrats for decades, I mean, it's even admitted that the Russians on record, you know, went through a large scale effort to infiltrate the Democratic Party, and actually, so this kind of plan worked brilliantly, where they've managed to, by getting the Democrats to attack Trump and paint him as the pro-Russian candidate, you know, again, the reflexive thinkers amongst the conservatives immediately think, oh, well, the Democrats are doing this, then we better do this. And they're like, a lot of them are pro-Russia, apparently. So, and then there is sort of, because people can't think, you know, hold more than two things in their head. This reflexive thinking means that it actually sort of endears them to the Kremlin propaganda, which is just so stupid. But yeah, he's basically saying that, you know, they put me through hell, and you know, look where we are now. Basically, that they and I'm being punished because of it, and yeah, well, we'll see what he says.
Yeah, we'll
I'm
continue.
sorry, I
It's
didn't really
we've only got a
Yeah.
minute and a bit left, minute and a half, so we'll just continue on.
That.
Yeah.
And he did go through it. We didn't end up in a war. And he went through it. He was accused of all that stuff. He had nothing to do with it. It came out of Hunter Biden's bathroom. It came out of
Okay, I don't really know what Hunter
Biden's
Biden has to do
bedroom.
with it.
It was disgusting. And then they said, oh, the laptop from hell was made by Russia, the 51 agents. The whole thing was a scam. And he had to put up with that. He was being accused of all that stuff. All I can say is this. He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't.
What do you
I
mean,
don't know
maybe?
what happened. But he didn't break them with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. All right, I think we've seen enough. What do you think? Huh? This is going to be great television, I will say that. All right, we'll see what we can do about it.
All
It
right,
is
that's basically
interesting.
it.
Yeah, Zelensky and Trump both come from the show world.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's true.
It did seem, I must admit, it did sort of seem like a reality TV show segment.
An episode of The
So-
Apprentice.
Yeah, it did. It
Yeah.
did. Yeah, that's right. An episode of The Apprentice. So it does kind of make me, some people will speculate and say, well, is this putting a certain image towards the Russians to make them think a certain way, but I don't know.
I'm
tend
not
to
so
go-
sure about that. I don't know if this is
Yeah,
5D chess, to be fair. I think this is...
we've had enough of 4D, 5D, 16D chess. That this QAnon stuff. So yeah, I don't think I wouldn't go so far as to say that myself. But yeah, it is. It just seems that way. But yeah, pretty
Well,
crazy, right?
Yeah, it seems like all the, now the Russian side just has to do is say thank you for something, and then they'll be placated in whatever negotiations there's going to happen with...
Medvedev.
Oh, sorry, you go.
Oh yeah, Dmitry Medvedev and stuff. They're all going, oh, I can't believe he didn't hit him in the face, which
Oh,
is
yeah,
just
that's
so
gonna happen.
just inappropriate. Yeah, and they were like, they're probably popping champagne bottles, as you said, Hector, and celebrating. I did look at a lot of Russian accounts, and they were actually quite happy with how that went.
Yeah,
and
why
that-
wouldn't they
and-
be?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. And so it's so that's what it is. And I mean, you just see how look at Vance's face right now. He knows he fucking set that whole thing up, and he calls that great argument, that great rift in American European diplomacy. So this is and yeah, as I was saying, sorry about the ramble before, but the Russia collusion hoax with Trump worked out so well that it does sort of create this idea amongst people falsely that oh, somehow in some harebrained way Russia is actually like the innocent ones completely, and it's actually just the Democrats that are totally the bad guys or something. And Biden, even though they're serving the interests of Russia and they're playing their part perfectly, and so they're getting both parties to basically do what they want through the Democrats and through infiltrators like Vance and others. So this is it's quite a this whole thing is man, what a complete I really feel bad for Zelensky in this, I have to say. Maurice, did you want to comment on this?
I mean, you pretty much already said everything, or you can already see everything in the video, right?
It speaks for
It's
itself,
pretty
eh?
bad.
Yeah.
It was a
Mhm.
it was a setup. I mean, as you said, just look at Vance.
Yeah, look at
He's
Vance.
quite
He's pretty happy
about
there.
Vance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just know from, I mean, I've seen this live. I was like, oh my god, this is so bad. The thing is, there were people saying, yeah, Zelensky should have just agreed, signed that fucking deal, and then you got at least,
The mineral deal. Yeah.
basically that they're, continuing, maybe not announcing new stuff on a regular basis and all that kind of stuff, but at least they're not blocking deliveries. And I mean, that what people not realize a lot, and I think it's a major issue. Oh god, that picture. The
It's
problem,
fat face. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
no worries. The problem most people don't realize yet is how much harm the US could actually impose on Ukraine. Still, even without sending US aid. I mean, you have to imagine they could lift all the sanctions to Russia, or alone this would have a major impact.
Oh
They
yeah, that would
could
be
even
devastating for the war
Yeah,
effort if
they
that
could
happened. Yeah.
sanction Ukrainian companies on the other hand, like Ukrainian defense companies. Imagine Europe complying with US sanctions. Like, where the fuck should Ukraine get its parts for making drones and all that kind of stuff
Mm,
from, right? It's when it's not from the US, and also Europe would be sanctioned. They could block other countries from financing stuff. I mean, when the US, for example, let's take Patriot interceptors as an example, right? Patriot, besides SAM-T, and they don't have a lot of SAM-Ts. I believe they only have two from France and Italy together at max, maybe just one, right? And they have a couple of Patriots, most of them from Germany. Patriot and SAM-T are the only ones who can intercept certain types of aerial threats from Russia, like ballistic missiles. No other system can, right? Like, at least in this efficiency, really. And the problem is when the US stops the deliveries of Patriot interceptors, and they are the only ones who really kept the fire units going because no other army in the world has so deep stocks and production capacities as the US has. Germany, for example, is just about to construct and start the facility of Patriot interceptors, but deliveries, we've contracted 500 interceptors, but deliveries are not going into our army until 2027, right? So there's no way for us to right now fund meaningful quantities of these interceptors outside the US. So even when he stops sending them, Europe could at least go to the US saying, okay, here are 5 billion euros. We want interceptors, send them to Ukraine ASAP. But when he's now blocking these deliveries, there's no way in hell that Europe as a whole could keep these fire units, which are so what is the English word? Indispensable, like when
yeah.
you can't replace it. Yeah,
Mhm.
they're so indispensable for the defense of Ukraine. And what this all means together is you first. The US could do so much more harm than they have already done by just doing a couple of things. Also, deactivate Starlink would create a mess on the front line. And the other thing, geez, where I'm getting.
No, it's good. This is good
um,
stuff. Take your time. This is really good.
yeah, so basically, just that they could do so great harm, and people are not really realizing this how big of an issue that actually is, in my opinion.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, already we apparently there was just today Norway refused to refuel an American military submarine because of the treatment of Zelensky by the Trump admin, and the yeah. So you've got and then yeah, I heard about what you were saying, Maurice, about they were immediately after the discussion, the Trump admin looked at ways to like temporarily or completely block shipments of munitions to Europe and to Ukraine. And so yeah, that was I don't think they've substantiated anything yet, but they don't want to go too hard out because I'm not really. It's so unpredictable, but what you're seeing is sort of like we talk about a scissor strategy in between parties in nations parliament between Republicans and Democrats and AFD and like CDU or other parties or whatever. I mean, there's also a grand scale scissor strategy being employed between continents and countries. So this is yeah, pretty freaky stuff. That yeah, and I agree with you. It is quite a serious situation that there is this sort of because you want things to be stable. You want things to proceed at a stable pace where you know you have these security guarantees and but yeah, I don't really think this is the way to go about it, and certainly the reasons that we've seen why this is happening makes it even more concerning with those leaked CCP documents. But yeah,
I must
yeah,
say as well, because Trump was trying to get this minerals deal through, and they were on the verge of signing it until like this disastrous end of this roundtable talk. It's
mm,
sort of crazy.
mm,
So
mm,
because of Vance's starting to become hostile and asking like meaningless questions, that he
mm.
pretty much like potentially torpedoed the grain deal, which would have made America billions of dollars. So
Yeah,
it's interesting
great
that
point. Yeah, really good point actually. Yeah, and
minerals deal. I think I said grain deal. Sorry, minerals deal. Minerals deal.
No,
minerals too.
grain deal is perfect.
Yeah, no, but yeah, that's a really great point, and that's what they're there to do. So, as you can see, people just in life, don't let people go to you. It's hard, but some people try to bait you,
And
and
Trump is actually pretty easy to bait. It happened in the debates as well, where Kamala just debated him on like
yeah,
meaningless stuff.
yeah, actually, yeah, it's actually Trump that took the bait
Yeah,
in a way.
yeah, no, it
With
totally was.
yeah,
JD
yeah,
Vance like dangled the hook right in front of him, and Trump definitely took the bait. So
and it just took him Zelensky to say one thing that could have been possibly construed to be a very minor slight, which it wasn't, which he was correct. They will be feeling it eventually if they don't get this right and they don't do the correct things to deter and sanction Russia. And if they don't give Ukraine NATO membership and nukes and cripple Russia's economy where they have to come to the table, literally, sanction the heck out of them, then yeah, there are no security guarantees for Europe, and there will be no security guarantees for anyone going in, any country going into the future. I mean, this administration is just continuing to embolden China and to embolden Russia and embolden Iran too. Although Iran isn't really, I don't think, mainly Russia and China. I think, yeah, and Israel hasn't bothered to budge an inch. They're just totally taking all the munitions that should be going to Ukraine. That they've just been lapping it all up. And in fact, I think it was yesterday they just got another $5 billion to their military arsenal. No questions asked. They just get another $5 billion. You know,
hmm.
so it's really just it's a terrible, messy situation. And yeah, not good, not good. But we'll just have to see how things go.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, if the United States isn't willing to negotiate with Ukraine in any meaningful way, again, it'll have to fall on Europe. Unfortunately, because of, poor, I guess you could call it
That's
like
right.
poor geopolitical choices in Europe, their defense industry is sort of down the toilet and has been over the
Yeah,
last couple decades. There is some signs that they're starting to rebuild, but again, they're like years off. So,
that's right.
sort of a shame that, yeah, Europe isn't quite ready to fill that void if they need to. So, it's just the way it is. I mean, I guess that's a good point we haven't really touched on, uh, Maurice, is the Europe's industrial base. They've been rebuilding slowly since the proper invasion of Ukraine in the second invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Do you see that as critical to Europe's future? Germany, Poland, France starting to rebuild their industries?
Uh, I mean, it depends on which aspects of the military industry you're talking. I believe we are talking only military industry, right?
Yeah, Miller. I mean, yes.
Um, yeah. It depends on which aspects of the military industry you're talking about. So let's take three examples, right? Two good and one bad one.
Mhm.
The good ones, for example, Rheinmetall, before the begin of the full-scale invasion in February 2022, they had a production capacity of 155 millimeters, so these NATO caliber shells, of less than 70,000 per
A
year.
year. Wow, that's nothing.
Yeah, less than 70,000, not 17, 70. Just want to make that, with my German accent sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, right now, so in the past 3 years, they are right now at 750,000 shells.
So 10 times
They
increase.
Yeah,
Mm.
they have gained over or close to 700,000 additional shells production capacity per year in 3 years, and they're heading towards 1.1, 1.2 billion. Not billion. That would be massive.
Billion.
Million shells. That would be
Yeah.
quite impressive.
Yeah.
No, 1.1 and 1.2 million shells in, I believe, 2027, something around this, right?
Hey, that's
That's
great.
about the production capacity of the whole US. I
Yeah,
mean, you
that'd
have
be
to
good if
imagine that's
Germany would
one
be able to match
company.
that. That's crazy. It's
Yeah.
probably what more shells than they even made during the Cold War.
Yeah,
Mm.
I'm not sure about that, but it definitely is a huge increase. So that's example number one. Example number two would be Hensoldt. That's a German defense company. They're producing, for example, the radars which are integrated into the German Iris TSLM fire units we sent to Ukraine, right? They had a production capacity pre-war, so 2022, early 2022. They had a production capacity planned as 3 radars, TRM-4D as a radar. They had a planned production capacity of 3 radars per year. Right now, they are something at around 15,
Mhm.
and they are aiming for something between 20 and 25 very soon. That's also a massive increase, in a very good example, because Germany sent over a dozen of them separately. They're integrated in all the Iris TSLM stuff we are sending to Ukraine. So they're very, very necessary and very enhanced and capable air surveillance radar. Very, very capable. And so these are two very good examples of, German industry actually ramping up production capacity, investing a lot of money. I mean, Rheinmetall, okay, is another good example. Rheinmetall, for example, as you just showed the example, what you see right now is Gepard ammunition. Gepard, the anti-aircraft gun, the
Yes.
self-propelled anti-aircraft guns we sent to Ukraine. Super capable of downing drones, but also cruise missiles. Very capable. Ukrainians love them, absolutely. But the big problem is they are not being produced for decades now. Same with ammunition is very rare. Some ammunition is being held in Switzerland or produced in Switzerland, can't be exported, and there was no production line in Germany. What did the German government do? They gave an order to Rheinmetall, funded a big contract. Basically, said, "Hey, we want new ammunition for them, so we are securing the ammunition supply to Ukraine for the foreseeable future." And Rheinmetall, within a few months, set up a new production line completely in Germany, in Unterlüß. And this production line is now producing ammunition for Ukraine for about 2 years now. And they recently signed another contract, and there are hundreds of thousands of rounds of ammunition coming from this plant. So another good example. A bad example, however, is for example our own deterrence. So the Taurus production
Yes.
needs a lot of time to actually restart again. I mean, we have current plans to actually buy new Taurus, about 600 Taurus cruise missiles we want to buy. It costs about 2.1 billion euros. So I think that would be a major contract for New Zealand, right? When you have issues
Oh,
with when a truck is a big deal for you.
Yeah.
So the big thing is, or the problem is that they need to restart the production. That takes a lot of months until this is actually happening, and so far nothing has been done. There is a contract now that they are overhauling and a little bit modernizing the existing Taurus stocks from the Bundeswehr, but this production line is not up, not running, and it should be running for years now, for at least 1 or 2 years now, because we need it. We already knew, or we already know, that for our NATO capabilities, we promised NATO that we have 1,000 cruise missiles ready. Right now, we have about 600 when all of them are operational again. I mean,
Hmm.
around the half is only operational as of right now. We know we need to buy at least 400 more. We still haven't signed contracts. And we know that for months now that we need 400 additional ones. And this is an example of me not understanding why this is not happening. Because there are very much good examples when it comes to our own defense, but also Ukrainian defense. But in some instances, there nothing happened basically. in the past 3 years, or nearly nothing happened. And this is not good.
So perhaps some changes need to be made to make the sort of the military industrial producing machine in Germany to
Are there
to get it going.
any? I just want to say, is there any news on these more sort of big ticket items like Leopard tanks and the
Yeah.
howitzer artillery, self-propelled artillery systems, or is it mostly just sort of shells and a bit of cruise missiles at the moment?
For our own army or for Ukraine?
Oh, both, I guess. They're like the industrial capacity for these items, because I think you're going to need a lot of these coming into the future if America's not willing to provide that defense anymore.
Yeah.
So for Ukraine, I mean, we're sending still main battle tanks. We're not currently new producing ones. We're sending Leopard 1s to Ukraine. They're just being overhauled, getting maintenance,
Yeah,
and then
modernized.
Ukrainian soldiers. Genau. Sorry, I was speaking German for some reason. So yeah, that's the case. So we're not producing any of them for Ukraine. We have a lot of running production for Ukraine in terms of armored vehicles and air defense equipment and all that kind of stuff, but not main battle tanks. For our own army, we have signed contracts. 123 Leopard 2A8 main battle tanks are coming. Which is very good. First deliveries, if I recall correctly, are scheduled very soon, because the first ones to get to the Bundeswehr, to the German army, are, if I recall correctly, meant for the German brigade in Lithuania.
Yes.
So we have a lot of stuff coming. Same with Patriot fire units. We have given 3 to Ukraine and some additional components. We have acquired 8 additional ones for the Bundeswehr. So we have a surplus of 5 new ones until when the deliveries are ongoing. Same with IRIS-T SLM. We have seen that the system, and a lot of countries have seen this, IRIS-T SLM is probably one of the best stories a defense contractor can have. Because it's such a immense good system, and it has such a high efficiency in Ukraine. And we have seen how good IRIS-T SLM performs in Ukraine, and the German government has said, okay, now we're buying 6 of these systems, or 6 of these fire units for ourselves, right, for our own army, and we have already received the first one, I believe, in August 2024. So there are a lot of contracts made for the Bundeswehr. I mean, we have a special fund. You had it open earlier with 100 billion euro. This money has to go somewhere, right? It's all for the Bundeswehr, and or most of that, to be honest. Yeah, so there's definitely production capacity ongoing, increasing, and definitely running for both Ukraine and for ourselves.
Yeah, that's good, because it looks like we may be heading to a future where you can't really rely on America for any defense guarantees going
No one
forward.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I believe we're already there, to be honest.
Yeah, I even kind of worry about New Zealand a little bit, and Australia, because I mean, and Taiwan's worried. The Taiwanese are seeing what's happening in Ukraine, and they're kind of going, "Oh boy, okay, what guarantee do we have?" And Japan's worried about. The Japanese are very concerned about the Taiwanese, and amidst all of this, I'm just thinking, gosh, okay, well, can New Zealand's rely on America and the rest of the Pacific partners? Like, I don't know that we can. I don't think we can anymore. And I think, that there was, like, ACT was floating around like 250 mil spare that could have been invested in something or the other. And it's just like, well, we should probably put that in defense.
Yeah,
but,
well, I mean, New Zealand definitely needs it. We have, you're not gonna, New Zealand has basically no cruise missiles, no drones, no anti-air defense systems. Like, the army's basically here is on the same tier as like an African militia, and it's like not even a joke in terms of like technology.
True. That's true. Yeah, it's actually, I mean, Look, Maurice, if you want to hook us up with some of those Tauruses, man,
We need
that would be
aircraft
good.
for. We don't even have any aircraft as well. We have no
Yeah,
fighter
I was
aircraft.
about to say you need the launch platform first.
Yeah, we need
Yeah,
some
true.
Eurofighters or something to launch them from. But unfortunately,
They
we
can't.
don't. You can't. Oh no.
They can't launch Taurus.
Oh well, we need something. I don't think
We'll
we.
talk to you. We'll talk to
Yeah,
Maurice
we'll sort
about
it
it.
out.
He'll
Sort
sort
us
us
out.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
He'll help us. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but
mm,
it's a shame. But yeah, it seems like that's where we're going. You can't rely on America defense guarantees anymore if this is anything to go by, and the rhetoric coming from Trump and especially Vance. So
mm,
it is what it is. But hopefully Europe and Australia, Japan are able to adapt for that for the sort of future we're heading towards.
mm, mm. Yeah. Yeah. You have to be independent from the United States. Yeah, Maurice, do you have any closing thoughts about to sum up everything we've talked about in regards to the elections and the future of Ukraine and the geopolitical future of the world, really, at this point?
Um. Oh. Oh. I need to make an impressive statement now. At least I feel the pressure. Um. Nah, really, it's just we all seen that we are heading into very, very serious times. I believe. I definitely have. Yeah, I'm convinced that I will end up in the trenches in 5 to 10 years,
Yeah.
definitely. And I don't think I will see you guys around. To be honest, you're far too far away.
Mm,
But yeah, it's kind of depressing when you
thank
think about. I'm now currently 26 years old. I mean, the Ukrainians can talk about that all day long, right? Because
you.
they are living under this hell, not only since 2014, but especially since 2022. And
Yes.
I just can't imagine that, my even though they already came close, that so many people in Germany, even my grandparents, are like could live their peaceful lives. And I know with certainty right now, unless the US government doesn't completely change their stance on helping Ukraine and also being completely bound to NATO, and defending, having the nuclear umbrella open and all that kind of stuff. I know for 99.9% that we're heading toward World War III, and that's not our fault.
Mm,
And that I'm definitely going to end up in a fucking trench. And
we all will,
I
man. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you actually will, like, to be like, no insult taken or no bad faith, but I think when China actually attacks New Zealand, I don't think that you will fight very much.
That's a good point. I don't actually.
Well,
Yeah.
it's sort of like how Ukraine's like a bellwether for Europe. We at least have to wait for Taiwan to get invaded first, so at least there's going to be that first step before anything happens to New Zealand or Australia or Japan. So I guess we'll see what happens there.
Mm, mm,
I don't know. It seems like at least America is slightly more serious about China than it is Russia, but at the same time, it's like they're both linked.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
obviously, just to prevent any future war either in the Pacific or future wars in Europe, again, Russia needs to be like defeated in Ukraine and brought to the negotiation. Basically, like they have to basically surrender
Yeah.
and be brought to the negotiating table that way. And that's the only way you're going to have any peace in the next,
Yeah.
3 or 4 decades.
Mm,
Is what happens
mm,
in Ukraine right now. Like it's going to affect the future massively. So
yeah.
I guess we'll see.
Today's. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's
No.
crucial times, and it
Mm,
seems like the Trump administration is definitely fumbling the ball.
mm, mm.
So I guess yeah, we'll start wrapping it up. Even though, it's a bit of a somber way to end the episode, but we've been going for over 2.5 hours, nearly 3. So I'd like to thank you,
I can say
Maurice.
something
Oh yes,
nice.
sure.
I can say something nice to them. Okay, so so guys, definitely check out my website, check out my social media accounts. I have a nice blog you can also open. It's very on the top of the navigation bar, where I write a lot of detailed articles. I am very glad about your support. Thanks for the invitation. And Slava Ukraini. How about that?
Slava Ukraini, glory to Ukraine. Yeah, no, it was awesome to have you. We really love what you're doing, and we hope that you'll come on again sometime, Maurice, because this has been fantastic.
And hopefully we don't have to come to you live from the trenches. So that's going to be the
We're here with Maurice in the trenches.
yeah. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. But yeah, well, thanks to everyone for tuning in. Thank you to those that have watched live or are watching the replay. Hope you guys have a great weekend. And as always, stay blessed, not stressed. We'll see you next time.